I watched as my wife walked into the kitchen. She was wearing her old pajamas, which certainly weren't very attractive. Even at 47, she was still the most beautiful woman I had ever met. At 5'9" and 135 pounds, she had what I call true feminine curves. Big breasts, a beautiful but real female forms. She lazily walked around the room, put her hand on my cheek, and kissed me softly on the lips. "Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" She then headed to the coffee maker to pour herself some coffee. When I first saw Kat, it was her feminine curves that made me get up from my seat and approach her. I soon realized that although she speaks with a soft voice, Kat is smart, funny, and very confident. Her breasts and butt certainly played a role, but it was her intelligence and sense of humor that made me fall head over heels in love with this young math teacher before the end of the evening. Some might call me tall, dark, and ruggedly attractive. Having worked in construction since I was 16, I have always been in good physical shape. And then, when I started spending more time in the office, I discovered the gym. And yet, every time I look at Kat, I think how lucky I am and how I am pushing my limits. She turned and caught my eye, holding up the coffee pot. "More coffee, honey." I shook my head. "No, thank you." I was angry. I'm not the kind of person who gets angry. I'm the one who solves problems. I turned the small construction company I started working for after school into the large company I now own. I never get angry, I don't shout, I just achieve my goal through willpower and charisma. It was this self-confidence and faith in one's own abilities that forced the two beautiful mathematics teacher to marry a builder. Across the room stood the most beautiful woman I've ever known, and we hadn't made love in over 2 months. When we first got married, we couldn't keep our hands off each other 3 times a day. Once we had kids, it stabilized to 3 times a week, and sometimes we would take weekends when we would go back to being like we were at the beginning of our marriage. A year and a half ago, Kat moved into the guest room. The work was just crazy. One of my senior project managers quit, and we took on 2 major projects along with our regular work. This forced me to work late, and at night I tossed and turned, thinking about business. Kat couldn't sleep, and it was starting to affect her work, so she moved into the guest room. On weekends, she would return to our room and visit me at least once a week, sometimes staying and sometimes returning to the room she now called hers. Somehow, imperceptibly, her visits in the middle of the week stopped. Then we missed a couple of days off. And now more than 2 months have passed since I last made love to my wife. I was angry, angry at myself. I was the one who allowed all this to happen. I heard my wife's voice. "Tom, are you listening to me? If you don't hurry up, you'll be late for work." She came over, put her hand on my cheek, and leaned in to kiss me. I pulled her close to me, looked into her eyes, and growled, "Tonight I'm coming home to sleep with my wife." Then I kissed her. At first she tried to push me away, but I held her tightly. Then she began to kiss me back and press herself closer to me. I broke the kiss, turned around, and left the house. At about 7 in the morning, I was already at work. Allison, sitting at the reception, greeted me with her usual, "I'm going to make coffee. Should I bring it for you?" "Thanks, that would be great," I replied. I never expect the girls in the office to make coffee for me, but if someone is already pouring their own, they usually offer it to others. The girls have brought this to an art. They wait until I get up for the second cup, and all 5 of them suddenly ask to pour them more. This has been going on for years, and they still think it's funny. Allison has worked for me for 7 years. I still remember her interview. She was 21, a single mother, whose boyfriend had left her and their little girl when he decided he wasn't ready to be a husband and father. Allison's parents died, and she was left completely alone. At the last minute, her nanny canceled the appointment, and Allison bravely showed up for the interview with 1-year-old Chelsea in her arms. She apologized and continued the interview. Allison wasn't the most experienced candidate, but I saw something special in her and never regretted hiring her. When Kat found out about Allison and Chelsea, she immediately welcomed them into our family. At work, Allison calls me Tom or Mr. Harrison, and outside of work, both she and Chelsea call me Dad. I walked down the hallway past the accounting department and shouted, "Good morning, ladies." "Good morning, Tom," they replied. Sandra, my assistant, was already in my office. Kat always described Sandra as a sexual harassment case waiting to happen, with her short dresses and low-cut blouses. She constantly flirts with guys, and with some girls too. First she speaks, then she thinks, and I'm not sure that she is even aware of her behavior. The rest of the staff at Wilson Construction simply accepts her for who she is. "Good morning, boss," she said. "Good morning, Sandra." We spent the next 10 minutes discussing the day's schedule, deciding what I needed to do myself and what I could delegate to her. The next step was to discuss the agenda for Friday's management meeting. The team from the second floor, 3 department heads, 3 senior project managers, 4 junior managers, and 2 office administrative employees. I built a strong and successful company. All the site guys and subcontractors we hire will not be present at the meeting. At that moment, Allison entered the office. "Coffee and a message from your wife." "Thanks for the coffee." "What message?" I asked. She said, "Yes, please, but don't forget it's the 3rd Friday of the month, and you're going to Sue and Paul's for dinner and cards." "Thank you, Allison." The rest of the day went as usual. I was a little late and arrived home late. Kat was already in the kitchen, completely ready to go. She was wearing a black dress just above her knees, with a neckline that just emphasized her beautiful breasts. As always, I was amazed by her beauty. "Sorry I'm late. I'll take a quick shower and I'll be ready in 10 minutes, I said and quickly headed towards the stairs, taking them one step at a time. As promised, I came back quickly and said, "Wow, Kat, you look amazing." "Well, thank you, honey," she said, coming up to me, putting her hand on my cheek and kissing me lightly on the lips. "Let's go, we shouldn't be late." We drove in silence. Kat sat with her iPhone in her hands, texting our daughter Willow, who was a sophomore in college. Our son, Brett, was a year older than his sister. There was no mention of our conversation this morning. 30 minutes later, we arrived at Sue and Paul's house. 2.5 hours later, we stood at the door, saying goodbye. Paul said, "Are you sure you don't want to stay longer? We could play another game." Sue looked slightly surprised and Paul looked puzzled when Kat said, "Sorry, Paul, but we have to go. I have a promise." Paul repeated in confusion, "A promise." Sue just glanced at him and said, "She's going to have sex." She then walked up to Kat and kissed her lightly on the lips. Kat leaned towards her ear and whispered something. They both smiled. Sue came up to me, kissed me on the lips, and I felt her tongue slide lightly across my lips. It was a little longer than a friendly kiss, but not long enough for Paul to notice anything. Of course, Kat noticed this. Sue whispered, "If you're going to have sex with her today, make sure you make love to her tomorrow morning." The first 10 minutes of the drive home passed in silence, tension hanging between us. Kat was the first to break the silence. "Do you like the way my breasts look in this dress?" Paul really liked them. He couldn't take his eyes off them. I just smiled. "You know, I married you because of your intelligence, but yes, this is a very sexy dress, and I love your breasts in it. I'm not sure I like the way Paul looks at your breasts, though." "But it doesn't bother you that my best friend licked your lips," she said, giving me a quick glance. Before I could answer, she lifted her dress above her hip and said, "Do you think my legs are sexy?" She then grabbed my hand and placed it on my inner thigh, just above the line of my dress. She looked at me and smiled. "I always thought everything about you was sexy." My smile became like a goofy grin. Kat then pulled out a pair of black lace panties from her purse and dropped them into my lap. "I work in construction and have an engineering degree that I spent 8 years studying at night. I analyze everything." We spent most of the evening together. About half an hour before we left, Kat went to the toilet. So if these are the panties she put on when we left the house, then she's been walking around Sue and Paul's house without them for the last half hour. "You're not wearing panties," I said, stating the obvious. "Did you take off your panties?" Did you walk around Sue and Paul's house without panties? She looked me straight in the eyes, while my right hand was still gently touching hers, and said in a slightly broken voice, I didn't even put them on. They were in my bag the whole time. She grabbed my hand and pressed it tightly to her, starting to move her hips. We drove in silence for several more minutes before either of us spoke. Damn, Tom, I needed this. I've been horny all day since you said that this morning. Take me home, honey, and have sex with me, she said without looking at me. I didn't say anything. Anger filled me again. I was angry at Kat for letting Paul look at her breasts, for walking around without panties all evening at our friend's house, and probably at Sue for her goodbye kiss, but deep down I knew that none of these things were the real reason. What made me angry was that my wife had been sleeping in another room for 2 months, and I had done nothing to change it. We barely had time to enter the house when Kat pulled me into the living room. Hugging me by the neck, she kissed me hungrily, pressing her whole body against me. I felt how fast her heart was beating. Kat removed her hands from my neck and, slowly lowering herself to her knees, began hastily unbuckling my belt. In one swift movement, she took off my pants and shorts. She raised her eyes, and I saw in them at first anger, which was immediately replaced by passion. Without taking her eyes off me, Kat began to pleasure me. As nice as it was, I needed to stop her. I wanted to have sex with her. I picked her up from the floor, turned her around, and pushed her towards the chair. I was aware that my actions had become more extreme than I had originally intended. Lifting her dress, I opened up a view of her graceful figure. Kat leaned forward silently, and there was a tense energy in the air. As I approached, I carefully ran my hand along her thigh. Her body trembled slightly at my touch, and I noticed how she took a deep breath. The longer I teased her, the more tension I felt. She moved back a little, as if awaiting further action, her body giving obvious signals. When she looked back and met my gaze, I saw something incomprehensible in her eyes, a mixture of impatience and irritation. Come on, she said, her voice strained. This time her gaze was full of challenge, which I could not ignore. I succumbed to this inner impulse and pulled her closer to me. As I began to move, I felt our actions take on a rhythm, and the tension between us only intensified. Kat's eyes never left mine, and her determination only fueled my own. When she looked away, her previous anger was replaced by something else, softer. Usually, it took her time to reach a state of complete satisfaction, but today everything happened faster. I already felt how our emotions were heating up to the limit. Suddenly, she relaxed, her breathing became ragged, and I knew she had achieved her goal. Her body sank to the floor, leaving her to lie silently in a moment of complete relaxation. After a minute or two, she raised her head and looked at me. In her eyes, I saw only love. Reaching out to me with her hand, she quietly said, "Help me get up, honey." I helped her to her feet, and she wrapped her arms around my neck again, her lips softly finding mine. This time her kiss was gentle and sensual. With a smile, she said, "Take me to our bed, love. I'm not finished yet." In our bedroom, I watched as Kat slowly pulled off her little black dress, which immediately fell to the floor. Following this, the bra is also removed. She looks me in the eyes again and says, "Tom, today I want to have rough sex, not make love." With these words, she kneels and gives me pleasure. By 7 the sun was up and Kat was lying next to me, face down, naked, still sleeping. Remembering what Sue told me, I reached out my hand and began to slowly run my palm over Kat's magnificent body. She only started to move when my fingers slid along the inside of her thigh. This was my favorite thing to do, teasing touches, but no real touching. After 3 minutes, Kat moaned softly. "Wow, this is how a girl wants to wake up," she laughed, reaching out to my body. We made love for the next hour. By 9 we were showered, dressed, and enjoying coffee in the kitchen. "Well, it was night," I said. Kat smiled and nodded. "Sorry if I was a little rude. I don't know what came over me." Kat looked down, and I saw her cheeks turn slightly red. I don't remember the last time I saw her embarrassed. In a quiet voice, she said, "I liked it. being submissive and submissive. It was a bit of a fantasy. She was silent for a while and then continued, "You're always so dominant with the others, Mr. Take it and do it. But with me, you are different. Mostly I like it, but sometimes." Her words were cut off. I didn't know what to say, so, unable to think of anything better, I asked, "Do you have any other fantasies?" Kat was silent again for a moment and then said, "Threesome." I was stunned and felt my anger well up again as I remembered how Paul had looked at her breasts the night before. She wore this dress and a supportive bra so he could look at her breasts. When she noticed my angry gaze, her eyes dropped to the floor. "Sorry, Kat, but I'm not the kind of person who's willing to share his wife. I don't want to see anyone else sleep with you." I felt my rage growing. "No matter how much I love you, if you ever cheat on me with another man, our marriage will end." Kat slowly looked up and said softly, "I meant a threesome with another woman. I'm not interested in other men." "It's still not a good idea, Kat. Sleeping with you and then sleeping with another woman while you watch, I don't think this will end well." This time my words were cut off, and I didn't know how to continue. "No, I'm not talking about you sleeping with another woman. I'm talking about us having sex and me being with another woman." She blushed deeply. "Anyway, it's just a fantasy." Like last night was just a fantasy that quickly became a reality, I muttered irritably, feeling anger well up inside me again at the memory of the raw and dominant passion we had experienced the day before. I was tormented by the thought that she was now talking about another woman, but last night she showed off her charms to Paul. "It's just a fantasy, Tom." Her voice trailed off again. Once again, I felt like an ass. When did I turn into such an insecure fool? Hoping to diffuse the situation, I asked, "So you kissed a girl and want to try it again?" "Yeah, but it hasn't happened since I was in college." I almost fell out of my chair. "You should have seen your face." She laughed. I chose my words carefully. "You understand that when I said, 'So you kissed a girl,' I didn't mean just kisses." She continued to laugh, and then, leaning towards my ear, she whispered, "Yes, I kissed a girl, and more, and yes, I liked it." But I was still concerned about her behavior with Paul, and since we decided to be honest, I asked, "So what was it yesterday with you, exposing your breasts to Paul and walking around their house without panties?" "Well, I didn't actually expose my breasts to Paul. Sure, I could probably do without this support bra, but Tom, my breasts are on display every day. They're hard to miss," she said with a giggle. "After all, they also hooked you the first time you saw me, right?" She stopped, thinking for a second. "Although, that's not entirely true." Her voice died down, and she looked at me thoughtfully. The supportive bra and no panties were kind of a favor for Sue. "A favor for Sue? To show it to your husband?" I asked, sounding ruder than I intended. Paul hasn't shown much interest in Sue lately, so we both decided to show a little more. When we left, Sue was going to tell him that we both spent the evening walking around without panties. Kat's voice began to sound tinged with irritation. And again, I said something stupid. I didn't even notice that Sue was showing anything. Kat laughed again and walked over to me, placing her hand on my cheek and kissing me tenderly. "That's because, Tom Harrison, you always look a woman in the eye when you talk to her." Then she kissed me again. Suddenly changing the subject, Kat said, "What are your plans for this Saturday morning?" "We need to mow the lawn and tidy up the yard. I've been so busy lately that I haven't had time to do anything." "This will probably take all day," I replied, trying to make it look like it was hard work, when in fact I loved working with my hands. "Poor thing," she laughed again. She knew me too well. "Sue and I were going to do a little shopping and lunch. Do you mind? I won't have to come with you, right?" She giggled again. "No, you won't have to." "Then, of course, I don't mind." "Great, I'll be back around 4, she said and pecked me on the lips. At exactly 4 o'clock, Kat returned home with her hands full of shopping. "There are still things in the car. Be kind. Bring them, please." It took 2 trips back and forth to get all the bags. Kat was already sitting at the table with a glass of wine and handed me a beer. Raising her glass, she said, "Sit down with me, I need to ask you something." God, I hope this is not about new fantasies. All day I couldn't get the image of my wife with another woman out of my head. I took the beer and took a long sip before sitting down. Kat looked me straight in the eyes, she's been doing this more and more lately, and asked, "Why didn't you tell me that Paul was cheating on Sue with that girl he calls his secretary?" Kat could read me like an open book, so she immediately noticed that I had no idea what she was talking about. She continued, "You didn't know. Crap. I thought that since he is your best friend, he would confess to you." Kat, I have 3 best friends in this world, but Paul is not one of them. He's not even in my circle of close friends. She looked a little puzzled. But we always spend time together at our house or at theirs. You play golf with him, even do business together. Sue is your best friend, that's why we visit them often. When it comes to golf, Paul is a good player, but business is business. Jono is your best friend, I know that, but who are the other 2? She asked. Kat looked a little confused, as if she was thinking, after 25 years of marriage, I should know who my husband's best friends are. I noticed her face light up when I said, "Our son Matt." "Of course," she said, but still continued to search in her mind for a third. "The third person is the most beautiful woman in the world." A big smile lit up Kat's face as she said, "Oh, it's me." "No, Sue," I laughed. She smiled and lightly hit my hand. "Oh, in your dreams, my friend. Just wait until I tell her that you didn't even notice her breasts." Before our game could continue, Kat's cell phone rang. She looked at the screen and replied, "Hi, honey, how are you?" Then, with just her lips, she mouthed the word Sue to me and returned her attention to the conversation. "Okay, honey." She listened a little longer. "Are you sure?" she asked after a pause. "Okay, we're here if you need us." After which she ended the conversation. Kat said sadly, "Sue is going to talk to Paul about his cheating." Hoping to distract her, I suggested, "How about I take my beautiful wife to dinner? Let's go to Mario's." Mario's is our favorite romantic restaurant. Kat glanced at her watch. "Great, I'll have time to rest a little before I start getting ready. I think I'll wear that green dress you like so much. What do you say?" In my mind, I was already imagining this green dress. Unlike the black one she wore the day before, this dress is much shorter and ends much higher on her hips. The neckline is also deeper, and her breasts will be practically visible. I didn't say anything, but that stupid grin appeared on my face again. She was halfway up the stairs when she turned around and said, "With or without panties." She then quickly ran away without waiting for an answer. We enjoyed a wonderful dinner and a very nice bottle of wine. Kat drank 3 glasses, while I only allowed myself one. I had to drive the car. We spent the evening talking about work, children, and discussing where to spend our holidays. It was a very pleasant evening. Kat smiled and said, "Do you like this dress? Isn't it too much for a 47-year-old woman?" I deliberately slowly lowered my gaze from her eyes to her chest and brought it back. "If your goal was to make this old guy horny, then the dress does the job. If you're already horny, then I probably shouldn't tell you that I chose the no panties option," she continued, holding my gaze. "And yes, that was my goal, love. I have plans for you today." At this point, the waitress came to our table and asked, "Would you like to look at the dessert menu?" Without having time to think about what I was saying, I replied, "No, thank you, that's all. Looks like I already have a promise for this evening." And suddenly, I realized what I said out loud. I looked at the poor girl, who immediately blushed. Kat reproached me, "Tom," and then turned to the young waitress. "Excuse us, dear. Tom, you're going to have to tip this poor girl generously." The waitress just smiled and said, "It's okay, Mrs. Harrison. I think this dress is making it difficult for him to concentrate." Now it was Kat's turn to blush. Suddenly, she recognized the young waitress, Veronica Wilcox, Sorry, honey, I didn't recognize you. Tom, this is Veronica. She was my best student several years ago. Nice to meet you, Veronica, and excuse me again, I said, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. We ended up ordering dessert while Kat and Veronica chatted and caught up. Long story short, Veronica got a degree in English literature and got a well-paying job in a big city. But soon after marrying the man of her dreams, it turned out that he was unfaithful. Returning to her hometown with her 2-year-old son and living with her mother, she now worked as a waitress for minimum wage plus tips. Kat said, "Tom, give Veronica your business card." On Monday, Veronica calls the office and asks for Sandra. She will know why you are calling. Veronica and I looked at each other, both not quite understanding what was happening. Kat just said, "We'll find a better job for Veronica." Then she looked at the girl and winked at her, and then looked at me intently. "Now, Tom, it's time to focus on the dress. You might still be lucky." Kat was delighted all the way home. The evening turned out great. Of course, she drank most of the wine, and she was clearly excited about the opportunity to help Veronica with her work. 20 minutes later, Kat stood at the foot of the stairs, looking at me. She placed her hands on the hem of her dress and slowly began to lift it. Laughing, she said, "See, no panties." Then she headed up the stairs. Turning around halfway, she said, "Give me 15 minutes and come look for me." With these words, she ran upstairs, laughing. I only waited a little over 10 minutes before I went upstairs to our bedroom. Opening the door, I saw that the room was empty. Anger flared inside me for a moment, but I immediately went to the room that Kat called hers. When I entered, I was stunned by what I saw. Kat somehow blindfolded herself and put soft, fluffy handcuffs on herself, locking her hands behind her back. She was completely naked. It was again another one of Kat's fantasies. Remember when I said I work in construction and got my engineering degree by studying at night for 8 years? I analyze everything, and this situation requires all my analytical skills. I was silent, but Kat knew I was in the room. Her breathing became faster, and I could feel her arousal. I walked over to the bed and ran my hand along the inside of her thigh, touching but not really touching. I stepped back and quietly said, "Don't you dare move," and then left the room. I went downstairs and poured myself some whiskey with ice. I went to my computer and opened Google. After another 10 minutes, I was again standing at the door of her room, noisily letting her know that I was going to enter. In a calm voice, I asked, "What did I say?" Clap. I hit her with the rolled-up newspaper I was holding in my hand. Kat's head whipped around, and she screamed, "What the hell, Tom?" If her eyes hadn't been closed, I'm sure I would have seen shock and anger. Clap. The second blow sounded loudly, but caused only slight pain. "What did I say?" "Damn you," she shouted. Clap. "What did I say?" Almost in a whisper, she replied, "Don't you dare move, don't you dare move." Her breathing became increasingly irregular. Again, I left the room, leaving her in limbo, but not before saying, "Don't you dare move." I headed back to our bedroom. Our room, this thought suddenly angered me. This is our common room, not just mine. I found what I was looking for, a small bottle of massage oil. When I returned to her room, Kat tensed, crying out quietly. She was nervous, unsure of her actions and of me. But at the same time, it was her game. I walked over to her dresser, knowing for sure that what I needed was in the top drawer. Opening it, I found among the things what I was looking for. As I slowly undressed, I knew that Kat was aware of what was happening, even if she couldn't see it. The tension in the air grew. Approaching the bed, I carefully ran my hand along her back. Her reaction was immediate. Her breathing became uneven. We continued this game, teasing each other, slowly increasing the intensity of passions. When she gave up, her voice was filled with desperation and impatience. It was a moment when words were unnecessary, our actions spoke more. After it was all over, we lay next to each other, and Kat, clinging to me, slowly came to her senses. She took off the blindfold and said with a smile, "Now it's your turn, honey." She then disappeared into the bathroom for a moment and returned with a cloth, gently drying me. We both smiled, realizing that this evening was about being closer to each other, understanding each other's desires. Kat kissed me and, looking into my eyes, added, "It can be fun to submit, but don't forget that I can be strong too." She smiled again, and at that moment there were no words between us, only understanding and mutual affection. By Sunday evening, Kat had packed all her things and returned them to our room. Sue called in the evening, but she still didn't dare talk to Paul about his betrayal. That night we slept together in our bed, just cuddled together. I don't remember the last time I was so happy. On Monday morning, I watched my wife walk into the kitchen again. She was wearing just the top of her old pajamas, and she looked hot and sexy. She lazily walked around the room, put her hand on my cheek, and kissed me softly on the lips. "Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" Without waiting for an answer, she walked to the coffee maker, knowing full well that I was looking at her ass. A goodbye kiss, and I went to work. I was supposed to be the most contented person on the planet, but something was bothering me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. No, that's just nonsense. I was a little angry at myself for not solving the problem sooner. Suddenly, the same picture that came to my mind when I was mowing the lawn flashed into my head again. Smiling, I left for work. On the way, I stopped at La Jarret, a small French patisserie, and bought a treat for the girls to go with their coffee. A little before lunch, Helen, my deputy, popped into my office. "Do you have a minute, Tom?" "Of course, honey. What happened?" "Sandra and Kat arranged an interview for Veronica Wilcox. If this is your and Kat's friend, I wonder what you want me to do with her." I completely forgot about Veronica. She's a former student of Kat's. This gives her a chance, but the rest is up to her. The decision is yours. Thank you, Tom. Mondays are always especially busy, and this was no exception. But all day I had a strange feeling, as if I was missing something. A little after 7 in the evening, I entered the house. I was an hour and a half late, but Mondays are always like that. Kat met me at the door and gave me a long kiss on the lips. "Hey, honey, I hope you're hungry. I made your favorite." Dinner was amazing. Kat enjoyed a glass of red wine, and I had a couple of beers. I volunteered to wash the dishes and then joined Kat in the living room. She lay on the couch with her feet up and listened to the incredible voice of the late, great Etta James while sipping on her second glass of wine. Etta was singing, "I Just Want to Make Love to You," as I sat down, lifted Kat's legs onto my lap, and began to gently massage them. She looked at me and gave me a warm smile. Etta sang the soulful "At Last," and it seemed as if these words were addressed to us. It was as if we were immersed in our memories of a time when everything was simple and beautiful. When we were ready to go to bed, Etta started singing, "I'd Rather Go Blind." Once in bed, Kat soon fell asleep, but sleep did not come to me until the morning. I just couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety and foreboding. On Tuesday, there was even more work at work than on Monday. Helen came into my office to tell me that she had hired Veronica. Instead of a position in the accounting or administrative department, she appointed her as a junior construction manager. I'm not sure a degree in English literature qualifies her to be a construction manager, I said, raising my eyebrows. Helen just smiled. There are too many guys on the second floor who think like engineers. With these words, she left the office. As for my strange feeling of anxiety and foreboding, I decided that it was just my stupid imagination. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Kat called me and asked for a favor. She wanted to meet Sue for drinks, but asked me to drive and pick them up so they wouldn't have to drive. Sue was still hesitant to talk to Paul. When I returned home, they were already together. I couldn't explain why, but I was pleased to see that they were both dressed conservatively in simple blouses and jeans, although, of course, the jeans hugged their perfect curves. I drove them to Ormley's on Main Street around 7 that evening and arranged to pick them up around 10 if they didn't call first. About an hour later, I returned to the bar to pick them up. It was lively and crowded inside. I decided to find a dark corner where I wouldn't be seen, but where I could watch. Perhaps these strange feelings still haven't gone away. The girls were dancing on the dance floor. I watched as men tried to approach them and dance, but they both simply turned away and approached each other. After a short break for drinks, they returned to the dance floor. By this time, the guys got the hint and left them alone. Finally, they headed to the bar for another drink. It was already close to 10, so I decided to approach. When I was halfway there, two rather handsome men approached them. I was too far away to hear what they were saying, but judging by the way the girls laughed, it seemed to amuse them. As I got closer, I heard the tall blonde man say, "What will you drink, beautiful ladies?" Sue politely refused. "Thanks, I don't want to." Then he turned to Kat, "And you, dear?" Kat also smiled, but just as politely replied, "No, I'm fine, thank you." The blonde did not give up and waved to the bartender. "Two more bourbons for the ladies." He then introduced himself. "My name is Pete, and this quiet but nice guy is Luke." He extended his hand and both girls automatically shook it. I wasn't surprised, it was more of a reflex action, although this guy clearly knew how to play the game by all the rules. Just at that moment, when the handsome bartender brought the girls drinks, I approached. Looking him straight in the eye, I quietly shook my head. The guy behind the counter was good at his job, and realizing the situation, he placed the drinks in front of Pete instead of Kat and Sue. The girls said no, so get out, I said. Kat and Sue, clearly surprised, turned around when they saw me behind them. Then the quiet one spoke. "What do you care, and who do you think you are, old man?" Very quietly I say, "This one here is my wife, and this pretty redhead is my girlfriend, but all you need to know is that I'm one hell of an evil bastard." The more modest one looks uncertain, but the blonde understands everything. Raising his hands, palms up, he says, "Sorry, man, no offense." He then grabs two drinks and leaves with his friend. Kat frowned, and Sue simply widened her eyes. "Well, are you ready to go home, ladies? The taxi is waiting for you," I say with a smile. By the time we get to my SUV, the girls are chatting non-stop. After the initial shock, they were clearly agitated by my ostentatious macho act. As Sue put it, "God, that turned me on." To be fair, they had a few drinks too. I load them both into the back seat and head home. They continue chatting non-stop. Sue quotes me as saying at the bar, "This one here is my wife, and this pretty redhead is my girlfriend, but all you need to know is that I'm a fucking evil bastard. Did you hear that, Kat? I'm his girlfriend." This sends them into a fit of giggles again. With an exaggerated husky voice, Kat says, "I don't know about the evil bastard, but he sure knows how to piss Kat off." They start laughing so loudly that I am afraid that they will simply wet themselves from laughing. Sue, now with a hint of sadness in her voice, says, "God, I love you too." In the mirror, I see her lean over and, slightly drunk, hug Kat. "You have such an amazing husband, you stupid bitch." Kat's voice becomes soft. "I know," she says, then adds, "and you have one sexy piece of meat for a boyfriend." They start laughing furiously again. The rest of the trip is a stream of not-so-subtle sexual innuendos and non-stop laughter. As soon as we enter the house, the music starts and new drinks are poured. Obviously, the party will continue for some time. It's only Tuesday evening, and I have to go to work in the morning. However, so do they. I walk up to Kat and kiss her goodbye. She doesn't want to let me go with just a light kiss. She kisses me passionately, so much so that it gives me goosebumps. Don't ask why. Maybe it was because of Sue's kiss the day before, or maybe because I'm still a little angry. I pull Sue towards me and kiss her the same way I kissed Kat before turning and going upstairs to bed. When I leave, they are giggling like two schoolgirls, although in fact they are teachers. I don't know what time it is, but it's late, and suddenly I wake up completely awake. The morning pleasure quickly brought me out of sleep. I lift the sheet and just think, "God, I hope it's Kat." And sure enough, there she was, smiling at me. 7 hours have passed, and I am sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee. I'll definitely be late for work, but I want to make sure the girls are okay. Sue comes in first, and she looks terrible. She's wearing one of Kat's old pajama shirts and nothing else. Is the coffee hot? Sweet? She asks, smiling. Just brewed. You know where the cups are. Walking towards the table, Sue raises her hand to the top cabinet where the cups are kept. At the same time, she gives me an amazing view of her ass. Sue doesn't even realize what she just did. Sue has just poured herself some coffee when Kat walks into the kitchen. How are you two doing? Kat tries to smile, but she looks no better than Sue. Not really, I say. Sue just showed me her beautiful ass. You should have seen the look on Sue's face. Damn it, I didn't show it, you impudent bastard. I turn to Kat and ask, coffee, honey? Oh yes, please, she replies. God, what a long night it was. Sue, could you get a cup for Kat? I smile sweetly as I ask. Of course, no problem. Sue turns and reaches for her cup, only to realize that her pajama shirt is starting to rise again. Now she is trying to hold on to the shirt, but she still reaches for the cup, which turns out to be an impossible task. In the end, she just says, screw it, stretches out, and again demonstrates her charms. Satisfied with the morning's work, I kiss both women and head to work. It was a slow Wednesday at work, so I got home before Kat this time. For many years, I have been keeping a diary simple notes for myself. I'm adding a few entries in recent days. Finally pulled myself together. Kat returned to our bedroom, along with all the joys it brings. Took Kat to dinner at Mario's. When we got home, she had a surprise for me. I was very pleased. The girls had a big party. I almost got into a fight. I should be ashamed, but for some reason, I'm not ashamed. Told Sue she was my girlfriend. She seemed to like it. The girls laughed at this. Sue called Kat a stupid bitch. I don't understand why that was, but it seemed to make some sense. There was a guest at night. Kat owes me. The girls aren't feeling well this morning. I'm sure they had a hard time at work. Sue flashed her ass. I must say, her ass is beautiful. Just silly notes to self. Out of curiosity, I decided to reread what I wrote over the past 2 months. I wonder if there are any clues as to why Kat and I ended up where we did. When I finished reading, it became clear to me. It was Kat who stopped all this, albeit quite quietly. At first, I really made an effort. Flowers and dinners, although I don't even remember consciously making such an effort. Now I was even more curious, so I decided to check her phone bill. The wonders of the internet, everything is online and instantly at my fingertips. There was nothing unusual during these 2 months. Once again, I think I'm an idiot, Tom Harrison. Then I looked at the previous months, and here it is. It started 5 months ago. Lots of calls from a number I can't identify. And 2 weeks before Kat and I stopped being intimate, the long night calls began. I write down the number, then make a list of possible names. It turned out to be short, but it's a list I hoped never to make. At this moment, Kat returns home. Hey, honey, she says, kisses me, then continues, Tom, I didn't do what I think I could have done last night, right? What exactly? Woke me up and had sex with me. Yes, that's what happened. I seem to remember that moment. She smiles, but God, did I really fall asleep right after? Well, you and the girls had a big night and a lot of bourbon, I say with a slight chuckle. Tom, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll make it up to you. I don't say anything. I just kiss her. I love this woman so much it hurts. We cook dinner together, then wash the dishes. As I sit down at the table, Kat slowly lifts her dress and begins to remove her panties, then lifts them high and throws them on the floor. I have seen this dance many times before, and I know what will happen next. Slowly, she sways and dances around the kitchen, getting closer to me. She sits on me, hugs me by the neck, and sprinkles small kisses on my face. Tom, honey, she purrs. Yes? I was thinking. She deliberately pauses. What are you thinking about, honey? Now she is smiling. Well, I have a lot of notebooks here to check, and if you help, we will finish in half the time. She continues to shower me with kisses and rub herself. Okay, I say. With these words, she jumps up from my lap and runs out of the room, returning with an armful of books. Do you want to test the high school students or the underclassmen? I end up checking half of both. When we're done, she sits back on my lap. Thank you, Tom. Kat is already exhausted. Let's go upstairs, honey. I'm going to make you happy. You go, I'll be there in a minute, I say. Kat goes upstairs. I take her mobile and open the messages. Most of them are from Sue. A lot about Sue's situation and a little about how much they enjoyed last night. Obviously, I'm at the top of their charts. Then I found something funny. Message from Sue to Kat. You're such a stupid bitch, nothing more. I go upstairs, and when I arrive, Kat is already fast asleep. Today, I preferred a cold shower. I think Kat and I need to talk. I'm the one who makes things happen. Again, I can't sleep, so in the early morning hours, I go downstairs. I find the recorded number and dial it. As expected, at such a late hour, the call goes to voicemail. His name wasn't on the list, but maybe it should have been. Carl Fielding, a 30-year-old teacher from her school. He started working at George Washington 9 months ago. There are many reasons why Kat might have called Fielding. When he first arrived, Kat was appointed as his handler, helping him settle in. They also participated in a school music project with several other teachers. At some point, Carl had problems in his family, and he began to confide in Kat. Although Kat didn't tell me all the details, she made it clear that she was aware of the situation. So they had many reasons to communicate. But I can't think of a reason for such long night calls. Then the calls stopped exactly at the moment when Kat stopped having sex with me. And recently they resumed again. I'm the one who always has a plan. I go back to bed and, funny enough, I sleep like a baby. I wake up early and leave while Kat is still sleeping. I had no idea what this Thursday would turn out to be like. When Allison comes in the morning, I know something has happened. She smiles all the time and cannot sit still. It's obvious that she can't wait to tell me something, but people and calls are constantly interrupting. Finally, she finds the moment and flies into my office, waving her hand. What? I ask. Look, more hand waving. Alex proposed to me. Allison has been dating Alex for a little over a year. Both Kat and I like it. Allison puts her hand on her stomach and says, he had to, he knocked me up. Oh, Poppy, you should have seen the look on your face. And he starts laughing. Just kidding, Poppy. You should call Kat, I say. Okay, Poppy, love you. And she runs out of the office. I'm guessing that once Kat finds out, I'll have to pay for the wedding. And that doesn't bother me at all. Kat and I consider Allison to be our second daughter. Willow decided that Allison would be her big sister from the moment they met. Shortly before lunch, Helen comes into my office. Good news, approval for the Eastern development has just come, she says. This is really good news and will make the company a lot of money. This is great news. We'll have to work hard, but I'm confident we can do it. And that's not all. With Helen, you never know if the news is good or bad. What else? Clive Poole is coming for a meeting this afternoon. He wants to discuss the Riverside Mall redevelopment with us. I thought he was working with Build Corp on this project. Me too, but we'll see what he says, Helen says. The bottom line is that Clive is indeed working with Build Corp for the bulk of the project, but is looking to us to do some of the interior fit-out work. So by the end of Thursday, I had great news. Allison was engaged, and I had already had 2 calls from Kat about wedding plans, and it was only the first day. Wilson Construction received more work in one day than ever before. All in all, a great day. At 1920, I was about to leave the office, but then I stopped, returned, and took the disc that was in the top drawer of my desk, and then went home. Thursday is not over yet. Kat left my dinner warm. She was interested in hearing about the new projects we were taking on, but really she was most interested in the upcoming wedding. Allison and Alex hadn't chosen a date yet because they needed to save up for the wedding. Kat quickly resolved the issue, and as I suspected, We are paying for her. But it doesn't bother me at all. Now they are thinking about getting married as soon as possible. Willow will be the maid of honor, and I, of course, will walk Allison down the aisle. There is a meeting scheduled for this Saturday, and I don't need to attend. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, Kat comes up to me, wraps her arms around my neck, and kisses me passionately. Come on, big guy, it's your turn. I'll take you to bed. Today it's my turn to spoil you. Wow, a man can't refuse such an offer. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll get up. I spank her ass as she turns and heads upstairs. Kat heads up the stairs and I head into the office, turn on her laptop, and try to log in. Invalid password. Kat changed her password. Up to this point, she knew mine and I knew hers. Kat keeps all her passwords in a small notebook. She never told me about it, and until that moment I didn't think it was done on purpose. She just didn't attach any importance to it. I came across this notebook one day when I was looking for something else, but I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. Bottom drawer, small box with a floral pattern. I found her new password, which makes me worry. Then I opened her mail. There are thousands of messages in her inbox, dating back almost a year. I type in Carl Fielding, but only a few emails appear. A quick glance at them shows that they are all associated with the school. Then I type in Sue, and there are so many more messages, too many to read them all right now. Finally, I open the deleted emails folder, which is completely empty. I load the data recovery disk I brought from the office, set up a program to recover deleted messages, and go up to the bedroom. Kat is waiting for me in new sexy lingerie. Do you like it? She smiles. Without saying a word, I walk up to her and hug her. I kiss her with as much love and passion as possible, and then I make love to this amazing woman, my best friend. And yet I think, could this really be the last time? Kat falls asleep quickly, but I can't sleep. It's already past midnight when I quietly go downstairs. The disk has done its job, and all of Kat's deleted letters have been restored. I plug in my external hard drive and start copying all her emails before heading back to bed. I wake up early and Kat is still fast asleep. I turn off the hard drive, then empty the deleted emails folder again so that Kat doesn't suspect anything. After drinking coffee, I go to work. The girls in the office are a little surprised to see me there so early. Usually, if I'm busy, I stay late instead of coming early. Breakfast with Kat, even just coffee, was always an important part of my day. This causes a bit of banter among the staff, but soon we are all immersed in work. It's been a busy morning, so it's only towards the end of the day that I have time to look at the hard drive. I ask Allison to hold all calls, give them to Helen or Sandra if possible, and if it's urgent, just record the message. Then I close the office door. 2 hours later, I have a pretty clear idea of what happened. There is no conclusive evidence, but if you read each email individually, it may just seem a little out of place, but not too suspicious overall. However, if you read all the letters together, it becomes clear that Carl Fielding had a clear goal and a carefully thought-out plan, which was carried out perfectly. His goal is to seduce and sleep with my wife. His plan was simple. It all started with the fact that he was extremely grateful to Kat for her help and support when he first started working at the school. Then came the compliments, first about her professionalism, then about her personal qualities. All this time he built a close friendship with her. Then, at some point, Kat became the person Fielding could trust. At first it was about school, but then, like compliments, the conversations turned personal. Flirting also began gradually at first. It seemed harmless and practically not dangerous, although somewhat inappropriate. Clearly, Fielding saw something in Kat that he liked or wanted from the start. The seduction was long-term, subtle, and very manipulative. At first, Kat was completely unaware of this. Then she became an unconscious participant in the game, slowly being drawn into his network. And finally, she already participated in it of her own free will. One of Fielding's tactics was to confide in Kat, telling her about his problems with his wife. From what he said, his wife was a free spirit and more than a little promiscuous. At some point, Kate began to call her that woman of easy virtue, And of course, Fielding played along, completely agreeing with this opinion. Fielding did his best to avoid mentioning me in his letters. When Kat wrote about me, it was always in a positive way. But Fielding always managed to turn things around so that, despite my positive qualities, it sounded like I was just a lucky guy with such a wonderful wife. He even dared to call her a sexy wife. The phone on my desk rang, but I ignored it, slightly annoyed at Allison. I said no calls. A minute later, there was a knock on the door, and Allison poked her head into the office. "Sorry, Tom, but Kat is on the line." I didn't even look up. "Accept the message and close the door behind you." I'm sure if I had looked at her, I would have seen a look of surprise on her face. 2 weeks before Kate stopped having sex with me, it is clear that Fielding had gained enough confidence to launch an active offensive. Now he is more than openly flirting. It makes me angry that Kat responds to him, and not just responds, but initiates some of their conversations. Of course, this coincides with the beginning of the long night calls, and obviously the beginning of their romance. I needed a rest, so I went for lunch and coffee. As I passed Allison's desk, she called out to me, "Tom, you have a message from Kat." "Thank you." I don't stop or turn around, I just keep going. Sitting in a cafe with a cup of coffee, I think about my next steps. I have always been a man of action, a problem solver. I knew I once told Kat that if she ever cheated on me, I would file for divorce. But now, facing the possibility of losing her, I understand that I don't want this. However, this may become inevitable if I cannot trust her again. Suddenly, I realize that I am being arrogant and presumptuous. When I finally confront her, she might choose Fielding. But whatever happens, Kat and I will talk tonight. Stop procrastinating. On the way back to the office, Allison finally gives me a message from Kat. She'll stay late and meet a friend after work. This simple message makes all the difference for me. At 10 p.m., I hear Kat's car drive up. I have a plan, and the first part of it is to talk to her as soon as she enters the house. Kat comes in and glances at me. "Sorry, honey, I hope you don't mind, but I asked Sue to stay with us for a while," she says as Sue follows her in. So the plan changes. "Can I offer you a glass, ladies?" I say with a smile. This is met with smiles and a friendly, "Yes, please." Having poured 2 large glasses of whiskey and grabbed a beer for myself, I hand the drinks to the girls and casually walk out into the hallway and then out the door. 15 minutes pass before they realize I'm gone. My phone starts ringing. It's Kat, but I don't answer and continue driving, heading towards the southern part of the city. 5 minutes later, she calls again. By the time I get to the hotel, Kat has called me 10 times and Sue too. I turn off the phone. When I turned it back on, the last call was made at 2:15 am. Then they stopped trying. I listened to the first message. Kat seemed calm, but asked where I was and when I would be back. Then the messages became more alarming, but it was clear that they did not connect my sudden disappearance with Kat's affair. In fact, they somehow assumed it had something to do with Sue staying with us. The last message was from Kat. She was sobbing, not understanding what was happening, but knowing that something was wrong. For a second, I doubted that I understood everything correctly. Maybe I made the wrong conclusions. After all, if you cheat on your husband and he leaves, it is obvious that this is somehow connected. I turn off the phone again. Saturday drags on slowly. For someone who prides himself on always getting things done, I wasn't very productive. Sue showing up with Kat confused me, and I don't even know why. I convince myself that this is not the time to make a scene and talk to Kat about her cheating in front of Sue, given her difficult situation. But there was something else, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I did the smart thing by ordering myself a full dinner before heading back to the bar where I was on my way to drinking too much. Beer and shots replaced each other. I called out to the bartender, "Hey, Bob, pour me another drink." The guy walked over, frowned, and pointed to the name tag on his shirt. My name is Aaron, but still poured me another shot, muttering something under his breath. There was a noise behind me that caught my attention. Some guy was hitting on a girl who looked too young for the place, but this was the southern part of the city, and the rules were different here. This was what I was waiting for. I got up from my seat and walked towards them. The girl hissed at him furiously, "Get your hands off me." "Fuck you, I've been paying for your drinks all evening, and you think you can just leave." The guy was huge, about 190 centimeters tall, and weighing probably 120 kilograms. "Fuck you, you can keep your drinks for yourself." She stopped abruptly, realizing how much noise she had made, and tried to leave again. The guy reached out to grab her hand. "No, you won't leave, bitch." I grabbed his wrist abruptly and squeezed his hand. The girl said, "No, asshole." As I expected, no guy from the south side would stand for this. He jerked his hand and stood in front of me. "Get your damn hands off me." I waited, knowing he would make a move. But then I heard a powerful voice behind me. "Peter." Indignation flashed in the guy's eyes, but his body instantly relaxed, and he lost the desire to fight. The man with the loud voice said, "Sorry, Tom, my boy goes too far sometimes." I turned and saw Patrick McCarthy in front of me, a mountain of muscles. I looked at the girl, but instead of gratitude, there was only irritation on her face. "You shouldn't have interfered, mister." I looked at her and said, "You look like your mother." Then he turned around and returned to the bar. Having finished the shot, I again shouted to the bartender, "Bob, pour me more." I think I did a good job of pissing him off. "My name is Aaron, you idiot." He pointed to the name tag again. "Yeah, but Aaron is a shitty name for a bartender, Bob," I chuckled. "So go ahead, pour some more, Bob." "You've already had enough to drink. It's time to leave." It was clear that I really annoyed him. I slowly rose from the chair and, lowering my voice, said threateningly, "And who will throw me out? Are you a smart guy?" And then she appeared as if out of nowhere, stood behind Aaron, and placed a bottle of beer in front of me. Tall, slender, beautiful, and blonde. "Tom Harrison, stop tormenting my bartenders." And with that, she turned and walked away through the bar. "You know, Sally, your ass looks amazing in those jeans," I called after her. Without stopping, but looking over her shoulder, she said, "Tom Harrison, if you weren't happily married, she would be yours." Aaron looked at me with hatred. I raised the bottle. "To you, Bob." At that moment, I heard a voice. "There it is, Mom. This guy tried to start a fight with poor Pete. He said, 'I look like you.'" I turned around, and she stood in front of me, still just as beautiful, and it was impossible not to notice that the girl was her daughter. She crossed the distance between us, hugged me around the neck, and began to shower me with kisses, and then buried her head in my chest and began to cry. Finally, she raised her eyes and looked at the girl. "Karen, this is your Uncle Tommy." I haven't seen my sister Mary for over 13 years. Karen was only 6 at the time. Mary married an alcoholic who loved to beat her. Well, let's just say he and I talked, and he spent a week in the hospital. When he came out, she chose him over me, and that was the last time we spoke. "What are you doing here, baby?" asked Mary. She must have read the pain on my face. "Come on, we need to get out of here." I left a big tip for Aaron. I got him pretty good, so it was only fair. Said goodbye to the very sexy Sally, then walked out of the bar, arm in arm with 2 beautiful women. We crossed the road and entered the lobby of my hotel. Over a cup of coffee, we spent the next 2 hours telling each other how we had lived all these years. Mary put up with her alcoholic husband for another 4 years. After our conversation, which ended in hospital for him, he became more restrained with his fists. But that didn't mean she didn't get slapped. When Karen first received a slap from her father, Mary packed her things and left him. Oddly enough, despite his problems with alcohol and violent character, Gary was always a hardworking person. He held down a regular job, and together with Mary working as a waitress, they lived well, not rich, but enough for a comfortable life. However, as soon as he left, life became much more difficult for Mary and Karen. For the past 9 years, they have struggled to make ends meet, while I have enjoyed a prosperous life in the city center. What kind of brother am I? I learned that Karen was a fairly successful athlete and received a soccer scholarship to the local university, but lost it after a serious knee injury. She graduated from the first year of the Faculty of Education with honors, but after losing her scholarship, she was unable to continue her studies. I immediately thought that Kat would soon take up this issue, and that, most likely, now I would be paying not only for the wedding, but also for the education of another young woman. I felt warm inside at the thought, but then I remembered again. No, Kat won't be around anymore. It was late, and I didn't really want to tell my sister about my problems. Mary knew me well, and given that Kat wasn't here, it wasn't hard to guess that something serious had happened. However, she wisely did not broach the subject, at least not yet. Mary and Karen had to get up early for work the next day, so we agreed to meet for dinner. Sunday evening, we had a nice time over dinner with my beautiful sister and adorable niece. Mary smiled and said, "Well, Tommy, spit it out." And I told them my story. It made me feel a lot better when I was able to discuss it with someone. Karen thought that I was making too much of what was happening and was sure that Kat was not cheating on me. She was convinced that I should immediately return home and talk to her. Mary didn't say it directly, but I realized that she had come to the same conclusions as me. However, she agreed with Karen and also thought I needed to talk to Kat. In fact, I am not a fool, and I understood that I needed to talk to Kat. But sometimes you just don't want to hear what you're about to find out. But if there was one good thing that came out of this terrible period in my life, it was that I found my sister and niece again. Monday morning came, and I had absolutely no intention of going to the office. I was sure that Kat would be on duty at my doorstep. I waited several hours before calling the office. Allison responded, "Good morning, Wilson Construction." "Hi, Allison. Can you connect me to Sandra?" "God, Tom, where are you? Kat was here this morning. She's on edge." "Sorry, Allison. We shouldn't have put you in that position." Without waiting for her answer, I said, "Connect me to Sandra, please." "Good morning, Tom." Even Sandra's voice sounded sad. "Hello, darling. What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Can you arrange a meeting with the lawyers for this afternoon? Also, I need you and Helen to take care of everything for a couple of days. My phone will be off, but I will be checking my email. If something is urgent, write by email." "Lawyers, Tom?" "Yes, Sandra, lawyers." "Okay, Tom." I waited until Tuesday before I received the email. To sign contracts for the Eastern Development Project, my presence was required in the office at 15:30 on Wednesday. When the representatives of the Eastern Project left the office, it was already 16:30. Kat was waiting for me at Allison's desk. If it had been anyone else, I would have fired him, but Allison is not just someone else. "Tom, you and Kat need to talk." There were notes of irritation in her voice. Allison had definitely chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. "Okay, but not here. Kat, I'll come home in the evening." "Tom," she could hardly hold back her tears. My first instinct was to walk up to Kat and embrace her, but I didn't. "Allison, take Kat home," I asked. "She's not able to drive herself now." "Of course, Poppy, I'll take her." Allison's voice softened. "Thank you, dear. Kat, go with Allison. We'll talk in the evening." "But Tom, I don't understand," she said, fighting back tears. "Tonight, okay?" Allison takes Kat out, and I hear her say, "I don't know what I did." Again, it seems strange to me that she didn't connect my leaving and her betrayal. Maybe I'm wrong. I wait until 7 o'clock in the evening before I drive up to the house and knock on the door. Sue greets me and says anxiously, "Hi, Tom. Kat is in the kitchen. She's feeling really bad." Walking up to Sue, I hug her and kiss her on the lips. We both seem to be quite comfortable with this already. "Sorry, darling, how are you? You found yourself between us, and it's us who should take care of you." I kissed her again. Sue presses her head against my chest, takes a deep breath to collect her thoughts, then pulls away and says, "Come on, we need to talk." Kat looks up. "Hi, Tom." She smiles, but there is sadness in her eyes. I don't say anything. I just go up to her, hug her, and kiss her the same way I kissed Sue. I hold her in my arms for a moment, and then carefully sit her down on a chair at the kitchen table. Sue sits next to Kat and takes her hand, and I sit opposite her. Looking straight into Kat's eyes, I say, "Kat, before we start, I want you to tell me that you will end your affair." Kat looks truly shocked. "Tom, I'm not cheating. Is this what all this conversation is about?" There is relief in her voice. I look at Sue. Her expression is slightly different from Kat's. I'm silent for a moment and then enthusiastically say, "God, Kat, you have no idea how good it makes me feel to hear that." Kat is smiling now, but Sue is not. I get up and quickly walk to the refrigerator, open the door, and take out 3 bottles of beer. "Will you have a drink, ladies?" Without waiting for an answer, I open the bottles and place one in front of Kat and the other in front of Sue. They both look a little puzzled. I repeat, "Kat, you have no idea how pleased I am to hear this." I raise the bottle, "To your health." Then I casually walk towards the door. If only Kat had been here, I'm sure I could have left, and she would have realized that she had been tricked only when I was already far away. But not Sue. She jumps out of her chair and is in front of me before I can escape. "No, you won't leave." Kat looks a little confused until Sue says, "He doesn't believe you, honey." He was going to leave. Sue literally brings me back to the kitchen table. Now Kat is clearly annoyed. "Thomas Harrison, I'm not cheating on you," she declares, regaining her confidence. Again, the thought comes to my mind. Maybe I'm really mistaken. Both women look at me, waiting for me to say, and I finally say, "Kat, I just don't believe you." Kat starts to say, "Tom, how can you?" But I raise my hand to stop her. "Okay, Kat, let's discuss everything. 2 months ago, you decided to stop having sex with me. Were you smart or was I too stupid? Because it wasn't until last week when I was looking through my diary that I realized how intentional it was." I pause for a second to see if she will deny it. Then I continue, "It's called cackled. Either you wanted it yourself or it was on the instructions of your lover." Kat found her voice. "No, Tom." But I interrupted her again. "When I got tired of your nonsense and demanded sex, you suddenly turned 180 degrees and began to blow my mind in bed. Again, this is typical behavior for someone who is cheating and feels guilty. Plus, you learned a couple of new tricks." I looked at Sue. She blushed, but didn't look away. Kat's eyes simply sparkle. "Tom, I'm not cheating on you. I've never cheated." I just ignore her and carry on. "So let's talk about how you were without panties at Paul and Sue's house last week, showing your breasts to that idiot. You tried to turn him on. These are your words. Now let's discuss your fantasy about sex. Did you want me, you, Sue, and Paul to have sex? And after that, would it be easier for you to introduce your lover and his bitch wife to our entertainment?" Kat looks puzzled. Maybe I really am wrong? But I've come too far to stop, so I continue to unravel everything. "Let's talk about those phone calls. Do you want to tell me what you were doing when you were talking for hours late at night? Did you take out your big pink rubber toy while I was sleeping alone in the next room? And when you decided to humiliate me, the calls stopped. I think it was around the time you started sleeping with him. You were smart. And yes, I don't have hard evidence, no photographs, no private investigator's report, but I see the realization on your face." "Carl," is all she says. Until this moment I was calm, but now I was really angry. "Yes, bloody Carl Fielding." "Oh God, no, Tom." A few sobs. "It was a mistake." "Error? What nonsense. The mistake was that when I came here tonight and asked you to end your relationship, you continued to lie to me." I get up. "I don't see any point in continuing this. I'm so tired. I need to leave." Kat begs, "No, Tom, please don't go. Tom, it wasn't cheating, it was a mistake. Carl is a good person." I turn to her and angrily say, "Are you trying to tell me you didn't sleep with Carl Fielding?" Kat cries, "Tom, it was a mistake. Oh, please, please." But her sobs prevent her from speaking. Sue speaks next. "Tom, please, you need to hear this." Now I turn to her. "You knew, and I kept worrying about you, thinking that your husband was a scoundrel." Sue is calm, which surprises me when she approaches me and presses her lips to mine. "Tom, I couldn't have better friends than you and Kat." She then kisses me again. "Please sit down and we will tell you everything, please." Kat takes a moment to calm down. Sue reaches out and takes her hand again. "Tom, Carl is a really good person. I made a terrible mistake. When he first appeared, the school appointed me as his curator. Then we worked together on several school projects. We got along well and became friends. Over time, Carl began to share his problems with me. At first, it only concerned school matters, and thanks to my experience, I was able to help him. I was pleased to help a young, promising teacher, and then he started talking about his family life. "Tom, did you know that I discussed his personal problems with him? I told you that I was meeting him for coffee after school. I didn't hide anything from you." Kat pauses, as if expecting some kind of reaction from me, but I am silent. Sue squeezes her hand and Kat continues. "Carl's wife is cheating on him with several men. She is very promiscuous, but he loves her so much that he cannot find the strength to admit it or leave. Tom, he was so unhappy." She pauses again, but I remain silent. "And then one day he called me. He was very upset. He left her. He sounded so depressed that I went to see him. We met in the lobby of the Holiday Inn where he had rented a room. He was so desperate, and the lobby was too crowded, so I suggested we go up to his room to talk. He told me that he found photos on her phone. I just reached out to him to support him, and then we started kissing, and—" She doesn't finish. I finished with her. "You slept with him." "Tom, it was a mistake. Carl is a good person. I felt terrible. I should have come home right away and told you, but—" Again, she doesn't finish. "But you didn't." "Well, Kat, it all sounds. I don't even know what it sounds like. Probably like nonsense." I see that Kat is stunned. "I don't believe you. You and your lover have made a fool of me." "No, Tom, I didn't make a fool of you. It's much worse. I had unprotected sex with Carl, and his wife is a slut. Tom, I could have brought you any disease. God, forgive me. I already went to the doctor and got tested for sexually transmitted diseases. According to some results, I have already received confirmation that everything is clear, but for others I will have to wait." Now I'm a little puzzled. In fact, even though I don't want to, I'm starting to believe her. Except that Carl Fielding is a good man. "Okay, what about everything else? The changes in your sexual behavior, the fact that you weren't wearing panties, and all these fantasies?" "It's simple. 2 months passed, and I was extremely horny. Tom, I am all yours, and will always be yours. Wherever and however you want. Tom, I beg you, forgive me. I know that you said that if I cheat on you, you will divorce me." Again, tears. "But Tom, I can't live without you." It seems it's time to make a decision. I could go away and think about it, but I don't really need to think about it. I already know what I want, and over the past few weeks, I've been far from being the kind of person who makes decisions. "Scotch?" I ask, and then stand up and pour 3 very large pours. "Kat, I don't want to get a divorce." As soon as I say this, Kat jumps up from her chair and rushes into my arms, then kisses me. "Thank you, darling, thank you." I enjoy the kiss and then sit Kat back on the chair. "Kat, I have, let's say, conditions. But you are an independent person, and it's up to you whether to accept them or not. If you don't accept, it won't be a final decision. We'll just have to find another way to work this out," I say. Kat nods. "Okay." Sue looks a little worried. "First, you must end your relationship with Carl Fielding." "Tom, I'm not cheating. I made a terrible mistake." "I'm sorry, Kat, but I don't believe you. Yes, you may have only slept with him once and moved away for a while, but you haven't stopped your romance." Phone calls resumed. I think we will meet for coffee after school too. Kat can't look me in the eyes. You didn't use your regular mailbox to communicate with him, which means you have another one, Hotmail or Gmail. This is a deliberate deception. Sue gasped. Kat, my God, did you really do that? Carl is just a friend. Kat can't shake her self-deception about Carl. Second, you need to go back to the guest room. Back to your room. No, please, Tom, no. Kat begs. One last thing. I don't want you to work with him. One of you needs to find another job, I finally demand. Tom, you can't ask me to leave my job, Kat pleads again. Kat, like I said, you make your own choices. None of them are final. It just means that we will have to find another way. My voice sounds cold. Kat doesn't answer. I look at Sue, and she seems to understand. Sue, I'm sorry I got you into trouble. I'd like you to stay. Kat will need a friend, but I'll understand if you need space to sort out your own stuff. I'd like to stay if Kat doesn't mind, says Sue. Oh, please, Sue, of course stay. I really need your support. Kat smiles for the first time. Well, ladies, it's time for me to leave. We'll talk later. With these words, I get up to leave. They are both sincerely surprised and say in unison, Aren't you staying? No, I'm not sure you or I are ready for this. With these words, I leave them. Driving back to the south of the city, I begin to think through my plans. When I arrive at the hotel, I call Kat. Honey, is Sue still there? Yes, do you want to talk to her? Kat's voice sounds sad. Can you put me on speakerphone? I ask. Okay, we're here, Kat replies. Ladies, how about Saturday night? Dinner and dancing. Yes, is all Kat answers. Perhaps it would be better for you two to go together, asks Sue. No, I answered simply. Okay then, Sue sounds pleased. Okay, I'll arrive around 7 in the evening. See you later, I say. Kat asks, Tom, I thought you were coming home. Have you thought about what I asked you? Silence. Okay, see you on Saturday. Less than a minute passes, and I get a text from Sue. I'm helping Kat move into the guest room tomorrow. I reply, I'll be home Saturday night after dinner and dancing, if that's okay. You just made your wife so happy, you should have seen her smile, Sue writes. What about my girlfriend? I answer. I don't know why I posted this, just a continuation of our joke from the other night. The answer comes from Kat's phone, both wife and girlfriend. On Thursday, I'm back at work, completely immersed in business. I leave a little early to watch the school where Kat, Sue, and Fielding work. Kat and Fielding come out together, stop, talk for a bit, and then Carl heads to his car. Sue joins Kat, and they both go to their cars. I follow Fielding, and, as expected, he heads to a cafe nearby. To my surprise, it was not my wife who was waiting for him there, but a tall, thin blonde of about 45. They lean towards each other as they talk, and although there are no overtly obscene gestures between them, it is obvious that something is going on between them. I didn't think that Kat would be the only one, but I'm surprised that Fielding brought this woman to the same cafe where he and Kat met. After they leave, I continue to follow Fielding and see him returning home. I get out of the car, confidently walk towards his door, and knock loudly. Fielding opens the door and, seeing me, says, Yes, how can I help? Obviously, he doesn't know who I am. My name is Tom Harrison. I'm Kat Harrison's husband, I say. Carl's reaction stuns me. He simply slams the door in my face. I probably should have expected this, but for some reason I didn't. I knock again, but he doesn't open anymore. Just then I hear a car drive up behind me and a very attractive young woman gets out. Short and slender, with dark hair styled in a fashionable hairstyle. But the most striking thing about her is her impressive breasts, which appear even larger due to her petite figure and short, tight dress. Hi, can I help you with something? She asks. Hello. My name is Tom Harrison. My wife works with your husband, I answer. Sharon, she says, holding out her hand. Have you come to see Carl? Yeah, but he doesn't seem to really want to see me. She seems a little puzzled. Oh, is all she says. I have to say, Sharon, You are an incredibly beautiful woman, I smile. She blushes and mutters, "Thank you," clearly a little embarrassed by the stranger's remark. I take out my business card and hand it to her. "This is my number. I would really like to get to know you better. You're stunningly beautiful." Before she can answer anything, I quickly continue. "It's just that your husband and my wife say that you are free in relationships, that you are, I quote, a girl of easy virtue." A blush appears on her face, not of embarrassment, but of anger. Before she can blurt out an answer, I turn around and walk down the road to the car, stopping to turn and add, "Oh yeah, tell Carl I know he slept with my wife." Then I leave. The behavior, of course, is not the best, but what difference does it make? Friday is another great day for Wilson Construction. It seems that the worse things are in my personal life, the more successful I become in business. On Friday evening, I park in front of the school again. No sign of Sue or Kat. Fielding goes out and flirts with several high school girls. Although I can't hear what they're saying, I can easily tell what kind of conversation they're having based on their body language. Fielding enters the cafe and stays there for about 15 minutes until Kat joins him. Is this surprising? Not at all. They spend an hour together, and then Carl walks her to the car, kissing her tenderly on the cheek goodbye. Kat accepts this without objection. Fielding barely has time to leave when the bell rings. This is Kat. "You didn't have to do that. You shouldn't have told his wife. Tom, he's a good man." I hung up. Kat chose Carl over me again. I wait for her to call back, but she doesn't. I drive to Carl's house and, without thinking too much, park a few houses away from him. To my surprise, soon a black Mercedes drives up, and the same tall, thin blonde with whom Carl was in the cafe gets out. She is his neighbor. It's daring to have an affair with your housemate. I wonder if she is married or has a boyfriend. After some time, I see Carl's wife returning, this time with a little girl about 6 years old. Carl has a daughter, but Kat never mentioned it. 25 minutes later, Fielding leaves the house, gets into his car, and drives away. I followed him to the sports bar. He parked in a well-lit lot and headed inside. Having stayed there for a little over an hour, he returns home before 7 in the evening. I wonder if he does this regularly. I'm betting there's a woman inside the bar that interests him. I go back to my hotel and call Sue. "Hi, honey," she replies. "Hi," I replied. To what do I owe this attention? In a short time, Sue learned to read me. "Sorry, honey, but it's probably best to cancel dinner and dancing," I say. "What did that fool do again?" She is clearly unhappy. "Well, besides meeting the creep again for coffee and kissing him goodbye, she also judged me for telling his wife that he slept with her. It's all part of their ongoing romance. In fact, I should have been talking to Kat instead of Sue." "I'm so sorry, Tom. She just doesn't see it. Kat really thinks they're just friends," Sue replies sadly. "Yes, of course, just friends." I can't hide the sarcasm in my voice. Sue still says sadly, "Tom, does this mean you won't come home?" "No, I'm coming home. I don't intend to make their life easier. I'll be home somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm starting to feel more like my old self now. An idea begins to form in my head. "Okay, honey, take care of yourself. I love you," and Sue passes out. Sue probably told Kat that I canceled dinner and the dance. Whether she told her why I did it, I don't know. But I know for sure that I didn't hear anything from Kat. Therefore, I am not surprised when, arriving home on a Saturday evening after 9 o'clock, I see that the house is completely dark. I go into the house, turn off the alarm, and head out to find a bottle of scotch. Upstairs, Kat moved her things into the room directly opposite the master bedroom, rather than into one of the guest rooms as before. Standing in the kitchen, sipping my second glass of scotch, I hear a taxi pull up. It's already 11:25 p.m., and I didn't expect them to be back so early. Kat enters first, all cheerful, quickly runs up to me, hugs me by the neck, and kisses me passionately. Even if I didn't taste the bourbon on her lips, it would be clear that she was slightly drunk. "Hello, love," she says with a drunken smile. Sue behaves more restrained, she is less drunk, but her kiss, like Kat's, is full of tenderness and desire. Tom, I'm so glad you're home. And then she kisses me a second time. Kat just glows. Oh, Tom, we had such an amazing evening. Delicious dinner, then had a few drinks and danced at O'Malley's bar. I have to tell you, we were the sexiest and most beautiful ladies in this bar. We danced and all the guys were literally standing in line to ask us out. We almost had to fight them off with a stick. She laughed cheerfully and walked towards the door, but suddenly stopped and lifted her dress, showing me that she was wearing panties today. See, I'm wearing panties today, she said with a smile and disappeared around the corner. Sue, looking a little embarrassed, said softly, "Don't listen to her, Tom. It wasn't like that at all." "You know it happened, Sue," Kat returned, even more inspired. "We danced, and all the guys simply adored us. We were irresistible. If you were with us, Tom, you'd love it. And then there was one more moment." She paused and looked at us conspiratorially. "If you want, you can go upstairs to my place. Or you both can go. I'll put my panties away and wait, and I'm also so." Very horny, Kat winked and disappeared around the corner again. Sue stood next to me, her face tense and worried. She, clearly not as drunk as Kat, sighed heavily and sat down at the table opposite me. "Tom, it's true, it wasn't like that. We had a really good time, a great dinner, some drinks, a lot of dancing, but it was all between us, just friendly. The guys tried to approach us, but Kat, even slightly drunk, always pushed them away. She stayed close to me the whole time, and we just danced with each other." I listened intently, but frowning, I asked the question that had been on the tip of my tongue. "Sue, tell me this. If Carl Fielding had shown up, do you think Kat would have pushed him away too?" Sue tensed, her face expressing genuine concern, and she lowered her eyes. "Tom," she began and hesitated. "Damn it, Sue, he showed up, didn't he?" I understood it from her face. Sue looked at me in fear. "Tom, we kicked him out immediately. He didn't drink a single glass, didn't dance, and we barely said a few words to him. Tom, you have to believe me." I sighed, knowing that deep down I didn't want to believe that Sue was letting me down. "Sue, I believe you. I know you're a really good friend to Kat." I glanced at the kitchen table where Kat had left her phone. Sue, noticing my gaze, tensed even more. I continued, "But tell me, dear, how do you think he knew you were there?" Sue was silent, her face becoming even more worried. "Sue, I want to show you something," I said as I walked toward my office. I returned with a folder in my hands. I opened it for Sue. "These are Kat's phone records. You see them gradually increase in size until they start talking for hours late at night, and then they stop. This is exactly the moment when they started sleeping together and humiliating me." "No, Tom, Kat only made a terrible mistake once." Sue started making excuses for Kat again. "Sue, I'm not sure I believe this." I continued flipping through the folder. "Here are the emails. They began when Fielding began working at the school. What's strange is that 4 months ago, she deleted all his letters en masse. Not yours, not the letters of her other friends, only his. Since then, she has been removing them regularly. When read individually, they seem harmless. Some of them are a little out of place, but if you read them chronologically, the picture becomes clear." I handed Sue the list I had made. Her face turned pale, and she gasped, "Lord, Tom, where did you get this from? Did Carl put it together?" "No, Sue, I wrote it, but if you read the letters in order, it will be clear how it developed. When I have a business goal, I make lists like these. This is a successful way to achieve your goals. I'm sure Fielding has his list," I said confidently. I then showed Sue the photographs I had taken. Fielding with that same blonde, Fielding with Kat, including their farewell kiss, Fielding with high school students. The last piece of paper contained an email address. This is her secret account. She has a small notebook with her accounts and passwords, which I found by accident one day. Sue took a deep breath. "Did you go there?" "No, I didn't see the point," I said, kissing Sue. "Good night. I am going to sleep." The next morning, I went down to the kitchen around 10 in the morning. Clearly the girls had another fun night. Kat walked past me without saying a word. Sue came up to me, stroked my cheek, and kissed me. We watched together as Kat took out 2 cups, and her movements gave us a truly breathtaking sight. Sue just smiled and winked at me and then joined Kat at the coffee machine. When Kat poured the coffee, she turned to me and stared straight at me. Her gaze was dissatisfied, almost angry. "Yes," she said. "You girls had fun again yesterday." Kat continued to glare at me before saying, "Well, of course, not thanks to you, because you decided to ditch us after promising dinner and dancing." I was silent. If she thought I would apologize or show any regret, she was wrong. So she repeated what she had said yesterday. "Oh, Tom, we had a fabulous evening. A delicious dinner, and then we went to O'Malley's bar, had a couple of drinks, and danced. We were the most beautiful and sexy ladies there. We danced, and the guys stood in line to invite us. Including Carl Fielding, my voice was much calmer than I felt. Kat glanced quickly at Sue. "Well, Sue put him out right away." She let her words hang in the air before meeting my gaze again. "Unfortunately." Sue gasped. "Cut." I raised my hands in surrender, then stood up and walked towards my office. I returned with a thick yellow folder in my hands. Sue looked from me to the folder, her face expressing concern. Kat didn't seem to notice anything, casually leaning on the kitchen table and sipping her coffee. "Kat," I began. "I was too self-confident. I asked you to do 3 things, and I even boldly called them rules." I paused, and Kat, smiling, moved away from the table. Her body became more open and confident. "Tom, it's okay. Me and Carl." She started, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Kat, I have something to say." "Oh, I thought about it, but like I said, I was overconfident." "Kat, I understand how difficult it is. We have been together for 24 years. We have 2 wonderful children. We have a comfortable life. I understand how hard it is for you. But Kat, if you're done with our relationship, then you need to move on." With that, I threw the folder on the table with a loud bang. "Take it to your lawyer. If you think that everything is fair and reasonable there, sign it." I turned around and left. As I was leaving, I heard Kat ask Sue, "What is this?" Almost in a whisper, Sue replied, "Divorce papers." I didn't hear anything else because I was already outside the door and left. I seem to be doing this more and more often, just leaving. I take a small white Ford Fiesta instead of my SUV. First he belonged to Matt, then Willow, and now he will be Karin. I spent the day with my sister and beautiful niece. After dinner, I try to give my sister money again. "Tom, I can't accept this." "I'm sorry." "Sister, it's only $300. God, woman, if you gave me your bank account, I would transfer 10,000. "Tom, we are quite capable of taking care of ourselves. I've worked hard, and since you and Harry left, we've been getting by." She is a proud woman, and her words are full of stubbornness. "Well, then you won't like what I'm about to say," I reply with slight regret. "Tom Harrison, what have you done again?" She tries to sound stern, but it doesn't work. I stand up and command, making the appropriate hand gesture. "Follow me." We go outside, walk half a block, and stop in front of a small white Ford Fiesta. I take Karin by the hand, put the keys in it, and kiss her forehead. "This is your car, beauty." Her joyful squeal literally deafens me. "Oh, Uncle Tom." She throws herself on my neck and starts showering me with kisses. "Oh, Tommy, that's so nice of you, but we won't be able to afford to keep the car." My sister had tears in her eyes. She's a proud woman, but it hasn't been easy for them in recent years. I hug her and say, "She is registered to me. Insurance paid. You will have a fuel card. All bills on it will come to my company. Please, darling, let me do this." "Mom," Karin looks at her pleadingly. "Okay, thank you, Tommy." The sister gives in, wiping away her tears. "Okay, now let's go to Sally's for a drink. I'll see if I can make Aaron angry again." "Aaron, what a weird name for a bartender in the South," I say, laughing, and walk away with my 2 girls in my arms. The taxi drops me off at my house around 10:45 p.m. The lights are still on in the house, but by 11 o'clock everything goes out and complete darkness sets in. I waited another half hour before going inside. I had just gotten into bed when the light suddenly turned on. Kat strides decisively across the room and throws a yellow envelope onto my chest. Tom Harrison, I'm not done with you, and I will never end with you. And if you don't like it then don't care. She pauses, looks at me defiantly and adds, yes, you heard me, don't care. Then she turns abruptly and leaves as decisively as she came. On the yellow envelope is written in large letters, sorry, but I'm not done with you. Damn, this is going really well, Mr. I'll fix it, I say out loud. On Monday, I had a simple plan. Get up early and leave the house before the girls woke up. But of course I was about half an hour late. 2 teachers with above-average ICs, and I thought I could sneak out unnoticed. When I came down, I was greeted by the aroma of pancakes and fresh coffee. Kat kisses me, then Sue, both saying in unison, "Good morning, honey." Okay, we lost the little white Ford Fiesta, Kat remarks casually. Long story, I answer with slight embarrassment. Kat glances at his watch. We have plenty of time. So I spend the next hour telling them about Mary and Corin, about how Sally still has an attractive figure, about Bob the bartender, Big Patrick McCarthy, and his son Pete. Darling, please give me Mary and Corin's numbers. Kat smiles. I don't need to ask why she needs them. I already know the answer. Kat turns to Sue. We need to find a better orthoptist. There seems to be a good surgeon at St. John's Hospital. Sue also enthusiastically adds, yes, and school. I'm sure there are other scholarships or half scholarships that Corin could apply for. I have a friend who works in the admissions office. I'll call her. I kiss them both goodbye and leave for work. There's a lot to do there again, so I leave a little early to watch the school. Fielding leaves first, followed by Sue after a while. I never saw Kat. When I entered the cafe, Fielding was alone. He kept looking at his watch, and his behavior seemed nervous. Someone put him on hold. I followed him to his house again. As soon as his wife gets home, he leaves for the sports bar. Today, I do not wait for his return, but immediately return home to my girls. When I enter the house, I immediately feel that something is wrong. There is some tension in the atmosphere. Kat comes up to me, hugs me around the neck, and kisses me tenderly. Then she whispers in my ear, that prostitute, Paul's friend, is pregnant. I walk over to Sue and take her in my arms, and she buries her face in my chest, trying hard to hold back her tears but failing. Kat comes up from behind, and the two of us hug her, as if forming a cocoon of care and support for her. Now our job is to take care of Sue. Okay, no cooking today, I'll order pizza, I declare, causing both girls to groan. We agreed on Thai cuisine and very good red wine. I wash the dishes while the girls turn on the music. Today it won't be jazz from Etta James, but good old rock and roll. We dance and finish our second bottle of red wine. Finally, when we are tired, I sit at one end of the sofa and Kat at the other. Sue heads towards the chair, but Kat grabs her hand, pulls her towards him, and whispers something in her ear. Sue says quietly, "No, I can't." Kat laughs. It's really amazing. I don't understand what they are talking about, so I just watch. Kat gently places Sue between him and me, resting her head on his lap. Sue then lifts her legs and places them on my lap. Sue giggles. Are you sure about that, honey? Yes, Kat replies. This will be the best foot massage of your life. With that, I begin one of my famous foot massages for Sue, while Kat gently strokes her hair, massaging her temples and face. Sue closes her eyes, and sometimes a quiet sigh of content escapes her lips. Kat takes Sue's hand and begins to massage her fingers. Sue clearly loves it. But I'm a little shocked when Kat takes our friend's hand and places it between her legs. At first, Sue doesn't notice this, and I continue massaging her legs. But suddenly, she realizes what is happening and sharply jerks her hand back. Kat, I can't. SHH, just relax. Kat whispers and kisses Sue on the forehead. I notice that Sue's dress has ridden up, revealing her white panties, which hug her body tightly. Kat, still smiling, leans down and kisses her tenderly on the lips. It's okay, you are among those who love you very much. What did I tell you? It was the best foot massage of your life. These words make both women giggle. Sue carefully pulls her legs out of my arms, stands up and kisses me. Good night, she whispers, smiling at both of us, and goes to her room. Kat immediately gets up and slowly approaches me. She puts her hand on me and, looking straight into my eyes, says, Darling, I'm not finished with you. I'll never finish. The next morning, I get up early, hoping for a breakfast of pancakes and coffee like yesterday. I am again greeted by the aroma of freshly baked pancakes and coffee. But neither of us says a word about the events of last night. We're only talking about Mary and Karin. Kat offers to invite them over for the weekend, but I explain that it will be difficult for them because they work and their weekends are the time when they can earn more money. Before leaving for work, I say that I will be late today. In fact, everyone in the office will be working late. Wilson Construction has a lot of work going on right now. When I return home after 9 in the evening, I am greeted not by the usual silence of the house, but by a patrol car parked outside my house. Walking inside, I see 2 police officers, both women. Kat meets me at the door and starts attacking me from the threshold. You shouldn't have done that. Carl is a good person. You shouldn't have hurt him. One of the older police officers says, Mr. Harrison, do you mind if we ask you a few questions? Against? Yes, I'm against it, I answer. She is a little confused by my answer, but continues, Have you met Carl Fielding? I don't answer. Instead, I go to the kitchen and get a beer from the refrigerator. Holding 2 bottles in my hands, I smile and say, Do you want some beer? The senior policewoman continues, Mr. Harrison, Mr. Fielding claims that you came to his house the other day and threatened him and also harassed his wife. I open the beer and take a long sip. Threatened? No, I was just keeping an eye on him. Thursday, Friday. When I mention Friday, I look straight at Kat. Then again on Monday, I add, taking another sip. The young policewoman clarifies, So you admit that you were pursuing Mr. Fielding? No, I was just watching him. I glanced at Kat again. Are you sure you don't want beer? The senior policewoman continues, Tell us about the time you went to Mr. Fielding's house and threatened him. This was on Thursday. You said you were following him. Why? I sigh and answer. On Thursday, I knocked on the door, introduced myself, and Fielding just closed the door on me. I was about to leave when I met his wife, who had just returned home. Did I pester her? No. Was I a little inappropriate? Maybe. The young policewoman takes a step forward. Inappropriate? Yes, I asked her out. It's just that her husband and my wife say that she is a free woman and describe her as. I pause to look at Kat's reaction and then continue. As a slut, they even used the word girl of easy virtue. Oh, and I told her that her husband slept with my wife. The policewoman writes down my words with a serious look, and the young officer asks the following question. Mr. Harrison, the fact that your wife cheated on you with Mr. Fielding gives you a motive. Kat interrupts sharply. I'm not cheating, she almost screams. Both police officers turn to her, but don't say anything. Then the young officer turns to me again. Look, Tom, you need to be honest in this situation. The court understands that there could have been a provocation. Almost half of judges and law enforcement officials have been in similar situations. But Tom, I must warn you, almost no crime is committed these days without leaving DNA behind, especially if it involves an attack. I should have taken this seriously, but the way she said it gives me some wiggle room. I pretend to be surprised. An attack? I didn't know it was so serious and that Fielding was hurt so badly. I pick up my phone. I am ready to provide a DNA sample, but this will be through my lawyer. He will ensure that all procedures are followed. Chain of evidence and all that. With these words, I call my lawyer. The police listen attentively to my one-sided conversation. Hello, Alex. This is Tom Harrison. Sorry, I'm calling so late. No, she hasn't signed the divorce papers yet. No, I don't think she's seen her lawyer yet. Yes. Alex, that's not why I'm calling. I have 2 policemen at home. No, it was Kat who let them in. Listen, there was a serious attack. So serious that a forensic team came here. Yes, I told them that I am willing to give a sample as long as you can trust that they are following the procedure and maintaining the chain of evidence. Yes, that's right. I'm not going to go to the station. Your office, I'll ask. I turned to the senior officer, who is clearly not happy. He asked if we could. The senior officer interrupts me mid-sentence. We won't need that. We don't need a sample. Sorry to bother you, Alex. I end the call. The junior officer is about to say something, but the senior officer stops her. He's just messing with you, Patterson. He knows there's no DNA. He knows that Fielding was conscious enough to give us a statement and send us here. She looks at me. You have a rock-solid alibi, right? Well, it depends on when it happened. There is a short period of time from the time I left it at the sports bar last night until I got home that I cannot confirm. And since then I can. I was either at home or at work. Senior officer again, 7 o'clock in the evening, in front of half a dozen witnesses in the parking lot of that same sports bar. Everything happened quickly and brutally. One hit to the kidneys, then his face was slammed into the pillar of the car. The nose is smeared all over the face. The final blow is a well-aimed kick to the knee. Witnesses say he screamed when the ligaments tore. So, is this an alibi, Tom? The senior officer smiles, asking a question. I was at work. There were 20 more people there. Surveillance cameras at the entrance and exit. Parking lot is also covered. The only other exit is the fire door in the warehouse, which leads to an alley. There are no cameras there, but it is always on an alarm system, which is monitored 24 hours a day. The junior officer makes one last attempt. That was very professional. You could have hired someone. I shrugged. I'm from the South Side. We do our own dirty work. Senior officer again. So, Tom, you've been keeping an eye on Mr. Fielding. Any idea who might have done this? My guesstimate answer is someone's husband. Not sure if the blonde is married. He's also a little too friendly with the students. Tom, Carl is a good man and a wonderful teacher. How can you say that? Kat again takes Fielding's side, as usual, instead of supporting me. In the end, this proves to be too much for the police, and they leave. A normal domestic incident, and I'm sure the senior officer bet that I did it. As soon as they leave, Kat lashes out at me angrily. Tom, Carl is a good person. We made a mistake. You didn't have to beat him up. She then leaves in a rage. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I look at Sue. She is about to ask, but I put my finger to her lips and say, if you ask, I will tell you the truth, and then you will have to lie for me. Look, Sue, Kat has made it clear that she's not going to stop seeing him, and I think she'll be sleeping with him again in a week or 2. So maybe good old Carl will think twice now. Tom, she wouldn't sleep with him again. Sue, have you checked her secret email account? No, what about you? No, I don't need it, but everything will be there. Do you think if I checked her phone records tomorrow, there wouldn't be an hour of conversation with Fielding? With these words, I go to bed. There might have been 20 people in the office that evening, but there were tons of people there, everyone coming and going. At some point, they brought takeout food. Most of the time, I was either in the office or in the warehouse. CCTV will show that I did not leave the building until 9 o'clock. The parking lot cameras will show that my SUV never left the lot. A sophisticated alarm system will confirm that the fire door to the alley was not opened. Now, if someone knew about the existence of an old coal hatch leading to a long-abandoned coal storage facility almost invisible from the outside, if that person had a ladder and knew where the key to the old 1950s padlock hung, Theoretically, he could sneak out into the alley without attracting attention. Of course, for this, he would need someone to pick him up. Not a taxi, say, a young woman who looks exactly like her mother. She could have dropped him off a block away from the sports bar without anyone seeing him get out of the white Ford Fiesta. Now, if he were dressed in a hoodie and dark disposable overalls, if he threw punches quickly first to the kidneys, then slammed his head into the car pillar, and then broke his knee, theoretically, he could pass as one of his own. Well, theoretically. Wednesday morning, and no pancakes or coffee. Sue comes down just before I leave and kisses me goodbye. There is no word from Kat. Busy day at work. Late afternoon meeting at Clive Poole's office that looks set to go on for a long time. I call Kat to let her know I'll be late, but her phone goes straight to voicemail and she doesn't call back. A little after 7 o'clock in the evening, I go outside. I understand that it would be smart to go home, but instead I go to the bar across the street. I'm not much of a drinker, so I order a light beer and find a place to sit, just killing time. I hear it before I see it. "You fucking bastard, you should be in jail for what you did to my husband. Carl didn't sleep with your wife, but he told me about you. Abusive, controlling, and paranoid." Here she is, short and slender, dark hair with a very modern and stylish cut. But what catches your eye most is the short dress with a deep neckline and her large breasts. Her petite frame makes them even more noticeable. But despite all this, she is very angry. Plus, she's a waitress at a cocktail bar. "Well, hi, Sharon," I say. "Fuck you, you're crazy," she hisses. "Mrs. Fielding, let me apologize for last night. My behavior was disgusting towards you. You didn't deserve this, but your husband is sleeping with my wife." "Nonsense. Carl told me that you always blame your poor wife for sleeping with other men. He said that you call her a woman of easy virtue." Now I'm angry, but I take a deep breath and try to stay calm. "Sharon, can I ask you a question?" I continue without letting her answer. "If I told you that your husband is sleeping with that tall, skinny blonde who lives next door, would you believe me?" What happens next takes me by surprise. Sharon's legs give way and she sinks to the floor. I barely have time to catch her before she falls. She's shaking all over. Several minutes pass before she comes to her senses. "I need to get out of here," she says, barely audible. Then she pulls away and I let her go, but her legs fail her again and I catch her again. "Can you help me?" She speaks so quietly that I can barely hear. "Okay, hold on," and we head out the back door of the bar. Along the way, Sharon borrows a cigarette and lighter from another waitress. On the street, her hands are shaking so much that I have to light a cigarette for her. She inhales deeply, then exhales smoke into the air. Holding a cigarette in her hands, she says, "I haven't smoked since college." Then he takes another long drag. By the time Sharon finishes her cigarette, she is calmed down a little. Don't ask why, but I say, "Don't you want to get out of here? Should we go somewhere for a drink?" "What, you think I'll go out with you and have sex? Fuck you." She turns to leave. "Sharon, wait. That's not what I meant. Coffee, just coffee. There's a cafe 2 blocks from here that has the best apple pie in town." She pauses and then agrees, "Okay, wait here, I'll be right back." Then she goes back inside. "I'll be right back" actually turns out to be 15 minutes. She comes out in jeans and a loose sweater, and she still looks great. Another 20 minutes later, we are sitting opposite each other, drinking coffee and eating apple pie. "So, Sharon, when I said Carl was sleeping with Kat, you didn't believe me. But when I mentioned the blonde neighbor, you believed it." Sharon Fielding is silent. I continue, "I know Kat slept with your husband because she told me so. But to be honest, I have no proof that Carl is actually sleeping with this blonde. Jane, her name is Jane. Jane fucking Smith, can you believe it? And yes, he slept with her." "Did you already know?" I'm a little puzzled. "No, not really. Not until you voiced it. Hell, to be honest, I knew when you told me the other day that Carl. Well, you get the idea. That what you said is true. But I didn't want to believe it. And then Carl told me the story about you being an abusive, controlling, paranoid asshole, and I just chose to believe him. She falls silent. So what about Jane Smith? I encourage her to continue. This bitch never even tried to hide the fact that she was attracted to Carl. She constantly flirts with him, sticks her butt out. One day there was a party, it was late, and I couldn't find Carl. He disappeared for more than 45 minutes. Then he said that he was outside, just to get some fresh air and relax. But then, when I thought about it, I hadn't seen Jane all this time either. I worked 2 jobs. During the day in a cafe, and in the evenings as a cocktail waitress on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Some nights when I come home, there are 2 wine glasses on the table. He says Jane came to visit. I told him I don't like it when she comes over when I'm not home, but he just laughs. God, what a fool I am. You know he meets her after work at the coffee shop near school. Well, that is, if he doesn't meet my wife there. Tom, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear the whole truth about Carl and your wife. She looks a little worried. And I tell her the whole story as I know it. So they only slept together once, she asks. Yeah, well, at least that's what Kat says. And I guess I believe her. But she doesn't understand that continuing to see him is the same as continuing an affair. Does she really think that you will believe that he is just a good guy and only a friend? Well, she really seems to think so. I'm not sure if I sound disappointed, but I certainly feel that way. And my husband thinks that I am a woman of easy virtue. She says this with some surprise. In fact, it was my wife who called you a woman of easy virtue. Carl said that you are free-spirited and a little loose. She suddenly starts laughing. You know, Tom, it seems to me that your wife is very naive. Carl is a slimy little bastard. So what are you going to do? I ask. I'll go home, and then I'll take care of my beautiful daughter. I had already forgotten about her. Come on, I'll take you home, I offer. My car was left at the bar, Sharon says, a little worried. Leave her until tomorrow. I want to make sure you get home safely. My inner knight comes out again. We sit in the car parked outside the Fieldings' house, looking at each other in silence. And suddenly Sharon surprises me. She leans forward and kisses me. Sorry, Tom, I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to. I laugh. I'm not complaining. Tom, I'm about to do something more naughty. Yes, I ask. I'll go and tell Carl that you took me out, that we didn't sleep together today, but I'm going to do it. She then jumps out of the car, heads towards the house, but suddenly turns around and returns. Tom, I hope you understand that a cup of coffee and a piece of apple pie will not get me into bed. Then she leans down again and kisses me. Me and Kat again in the kitchen. It's obvious that Kat is still angry at me for beating Fielding even though he deserved it. So did your meeting last until now, or did you just not want to go home? You went off to sulk again. Over the past week, with everything that's happened, it's been hard for me to control my emotions. However, up to this point, Kat had never tried to intentionally hurt me until this moment. Okay, Kat, I get it. I'll go to bed. I was not in the mood for another quarrel. Bullshit. Where have you been? She shouts. I take a deep breath. I was with Sharon Fielding. These words confuse Kat. Her voice becomes barely audible. Were you with that easy-to-get bitch? You. Was this revenge, Tom? Did you sleep with her? Oh, God. Her name is Sharon. Did you know she has a 6-year-old daughter? She works 2 jobs, and yes, one of them is a cocktail waitress. She has to wear this provocative dress. Did you know that she is actually a qualified designer, but cannot find a job in her profession? Well, that's not entirely true. She had a job, but her boss couldn't keep his hands to himself, so she quit. Does he look like an easy-to-get bitch? Carl said she cheated on him. Cocktail waitress, where else is it easier to find men? Again, the same thing from Kat. Kat, she is not a girl of easy virtue. But Carl Fielding slept with you and is sleeping with their blonde neighbor. Her name is Jane Smith, and as far as I understand, you will soon get your threesome fantasy. Old Carl, Jane, and you. Kat can't stand it. You're lying. He doesn't have sex with anyone. I don't believe you. I don't believe. But her voice fades. Well, yes, I'm a liar, and you don't believe me. It's obvious that you're upset that he's not just sleeping with you. My voice is flat and cold. Kat sounds desperate, apparently aware of what she just let slip. I said it and I meant it. She is the liar. She lied to you. I slept with Carl once, and it was a mistake. Tom, I already told you it was a mistake. Her last words sound almost without conviction. I'm not cheating, but they are already losing weight. I'm done, and it's going to take a damn miracle for me to stay here until morning. I head towards the stairs. Sue stands in the doorway, apparently listening. In her hands is a folder and Kat's laptop. I fall on the bed. I planned to pack my things and move south, but I was too exhausted. I must have fallen asleep. I was awakened by a light touch from Kat, who was shaking me. Tom, wake up. We need to talk. Please, Tom. I looked at my watch. I had only slept for 2 hours. I look at Kat. Kat, I really don't see the point in this. You're welcome, Tom. I sit down and wait for her to continue. She takes out her phone and dials a number. Kat puts her finger to my lips and whispers, quiet. Her phone is on speakerphone. Fielding replies, Kat, what a pleasant surprise. Hello, Carl. Carl, we need to talk, Kat says. I'm always happy to talk to you, beauty. You're such a good friend, he replies. Carl, we are no longer friends. I don't want to see you or talk to you. I'm ending our affair. Do you understand? There is a long pause before Carl responds. Kat, I understand and respect your decision. I shouldn't have dragged you into my personal life. I'm sorry. You were and remain a true friend to me. Kat, stop blaming yourself. We made a mistake. But despite the fact that your husband constantly accuses you of cheating, you do not cheat. You are too loyal and decent for that. This guy knows how to act. At first, he immediately agrees and makes concessions to calm Kat down. And then he begins to gradually crush her under himself again, not missing an opportunity to make me out to be the bad guy. Carl, we're done, Kat replies confidently. Where was this Kat a week ago? Okay, Kat, I understand. But I hope that I can turn to you for help if I have problems at school. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. This guy never gives up. Carl, we're done, Kat repeats firmly. Okay, Kat, but since you are still my friend, and I will always consider you as such, I need to tell you something. Carl, there's nothing more to discuss. But Fielding interrupts her. Kat, my wife was with your husband tonight. Nothing happened between them, but they have an appointment for next week, and she plans to sleep with him. They have already agreed on everything. Fielding continues his game. Carl, I know about this. My husband told me everything. And guess what? Sharon is looking forward to great sex with him. After these words, Kat ends the call. She leans towards me and lightly touches my lips. Go take a shower, honey. You look tired. If possible, let's talk in the morning. I was so stupid. With these words, she gets out of bed and heads to the door. Pausing for a moment, she adds, there is someone I owe an apology to downstairs. God, how she must be suffering. And what kind of friend am I? Sue was lucky to have you around, Tom. I go to the shower, then go back to bed. I lie down and start enjoying life again. I think I should give the girls a night out. I'm almost asleep when the light turns on. Kat and Sue are standing in the doorway. We just wanted to say good night, says Sue. Have you made up? I ask. Yes, everything is fine, Sue replies. I lift the blanket. If you need a hug. In your dreams, my friend, they answer in unison and leave. In the morning, I decided to try to get up early. The coffee is hot, pancakes are on the way. Kat arrives first, then Sue. I'm a little disappointed that they're both dressed and ready for school, but I'm not disappointed when they both smile and kiss me. Sit down, the coffee is hot and the pancakes are almost ready, I say. They sit down at the table. I pour them coffee and serve pancakes. We eat in silence. The mood is a little tense. But after last night, I am sure that everything will work out for us. To ease the tension, I ask, so, do you have plans for Friday night? They look at each other. No, says Kat. Why? Asks Sue. Yes, just like that, I answered. Sue gets serious. Tom, you can't let Kat quit her job. It's not fair. She blurts it out straight. Sue, Kat pulls her back. Sue, it's her decision, I say, pausing. But if you want to know what I want. Another pause. I want Kat back in our bedroom. I don't say anything more, get up, receive my usual kisses from both of them, and leave for work. Thursday is another busy day at Wilson Construction. I don't see the point in leaving work early and being on duty at the coffee shop, but I do it anyway. You have no idea how I feel when I see Kat walk in there. She finds a place for herself and is clearly waiting for someone. Given that this is that coffee shop, there can only be one person fielding. I almost made it to the car when I saw a familiar car and a driver heading towards the coffee shop. I change my mind, take a deep breath to collect my thoughts, and head back. I watch them for a few minutes as they chat animatedly, but when they reach across the table and hug each other, I decide to intervene. Hi, I say. They both look up and look slightly stunned. Obviously, I'm the last person they expected to see, and that's a little naive, considering that they both know that I'm keeping an eye on this coffee shop. Sharon Fielding shifts and motions for me to sit. Hi, Tom. Kat begins to explain. Tom, I called Sharon to apologize. She said that if I was serious, I should do it in person. We thought there was no better place than this coffee shop. So you're friends now? I ask slightly sarcastically. No, more like some kind of tense truce, Sharon says, glancing at Kat. You know, Tom, all it takes is one more coffee and apple pie, and I'll definitely sleep with you. But she ends it with a smile. I raise my hands. Okay, I'll leave you ladies alone. I get up to leave, but not before kissing Kat. I've only taken 2 steps away from the table when Sharon calls out to me, What about me? Won't you kiss me? Against my instincts, I go back and kiss Sharon too. As I leave, I hear her quietly ask Kat, He's not going to sleep with me, is he? No, luckily for me and unfortunately for you, Tom Harrison is one of those good guys, Kat replies. The last thing I heard was Sharon saying, Kat, what you told Carl on the phone that Tom would be the best. But I had already left the coffee shop. That night, I expected Kat to come back to our bedroom, but she didn't. At breakfast, the girls look at me strangely, then start giggling and whispering to each other. What? I ask with slight irritation. Sue spoke first. Well, you said. Well, that night you asked if we had plans for Friday. We thought about it for a bit, and now we wonder what that would mean. We want to figure out what to wear. Do you mean panties or no panties? I smile, although it looks more like a predatory grin. No, that's not what I meant at all, Tom Harrison. Sue blushes, but both women laugh anyway. I get up and pour myself another cup of coffee. So, you didn't check your emails this morning? They both jumped up and ran to their laptops. Soon I hear their screams of joy. These 2 mature school teachers squeal with delight. It was the last day of the semester, and I gave them the day off. We booked a flight to Nashville at 1:30 p.m. Suite at the Hilton Hotel. Dinner at Wild Wasabi Sushi isn't really my thing, but the girls love it. And the menu mentioned a buffet, which is good. Saturday is a day for shopping, and in the evening there is a Gretchen Wilson concert. What? Girls love her song, Here for the Party. And then some honey tonka. Late checkout on Sunday, and then back home. Both girls returned to the kitchen, quickly walked past me and rushed upstairs. Then they turned around, came back and gave me kisses before reproaching. Damn, Tom Harrison, he could have warned us in advance. We will need to leave no later than noon to catch the 1:30 p.m. flight. I looked at my watch, 8:07 m. Yes, they have a little less than 4 hours to get ready. We returned to the suite a little after 10 p.m. The girls seemed to float in the air. Sake, as it turns out, has a strong effect. As for sushi, I could get used to it. When we arrived at the hotel, The girls decided they had a little time for shopping before dinner. They told me that I didn't have to go with them, but they expected me tomorrow without fail, and they went shopping. Now they think it would be a good idea to show me what they bought. As I said, the sake worked well. They go into the bedroom, and I turn on the music and pour 3 glasses of wine. First, they come out in their honky-tonk outfits. Skinny jeans that hug their butts, tank tops, and long-sleeved shirts. Sue's is pink, Kat's is white. And new shoes, not exactly striptease worthy, but still damn hot. Then 2 new party dresses. I watch them sway slowly to the music and slowly lift their dresses to reveal their ugly lycra panties. Well, at least they find it funny. They both down half their glass of wine and head back to the bedroom for another quick change of clothes. Now something more interesting begins. Lace shorts by Hanky Panky and matching push-up bras. Sue has red, Kat has black. They finish their wine. Kat purrs and holds up one finger. We have one more thing left. I hope you like it, darling. Well, if I thought they looked sexy in their old pajama tops, there are simply no words to describe how I feel when they step out in baby dolls. Kat is back in white, Sue is in pink. Option, no panties. They both move across the room towards me. Kat takes my right hand, Sue takes my left and pulls me up. Come on, it's time for bed, love, says Sue. In the bedroom, first Kat kisses me, then Sue. The girls help me take off my shirt and then step back. Kat takes Sue's hand, looks at me and smiles, and then leads her to the bed and pushes her down. I can see that Sue is excited but extremely nervous. Kat slowly approaches Sue, showing tenderness and care in every movement. Leaning down, she gently touches her cheek with her lips, leaving a light kiss. Sue doesn't respond at first, but Kat is patient and continues to act gently. Soon Sue responds to her touch, and something filled with warmth and mutual understanding begins between them. Kat, full of attention and care, gently hugs Sue, as if trying to calm her anxiety. They share a moment of intimacy without rush or pressure, enjoying a moment of silence and mutual support. Sue, feeling increasingly relaxed, begins to trust this new experience, allowing herself to become completely immersed in the warmth and comfort that Kat gives her. After that, all 3 of us lie next to each other, exhausted and satisfied. There is a blissful silence in the room, and I enjoy this moment. It had been 3 months since I was sitting in my kitchen with 3 beautiful women when there was a knock on the door. I looked at them, they looked at me. Should I open it? I asked. I opened the door and saw 2 policemen in front of me. The same woman who had already come to me before. Hello, Mr. Harrison. Do you mind if we come in? Asked the senior officer. I stepped aside. Come here, we're all in the kitchen. They followed me. The senior officer surveyed the situation and asked, Mr. Harrison, do you mind if we ask you a few questions? I smiled. If I say no, you'll still ask them, right? I smiled again. So what are we talking about? Mr. Fielding was attacked again this afternoon. He was hit in the kidneys, his face was slammed into the wall, and then his knee was broken by a kick. While she spoke, the officer did not take his eyes off me. The poor guy can't catch his luck. He is, of course, an unlucky son of a bitch. I could hardly restrain a serious expression on my face. I don't think luck has anything to do with it, the junior officer interjected. The senior officer continued, Again, Mr. Fielding claims it was you, and I am inclined to believe him. Could you tell me where you were this evening? Straight home from work. I have been here since 6 o'clock in the evening, surrounded by beautiful women. I haven't come out since you 2 beautiful ladies came here. The junior officer blushed slightly, but the senior officer remained unperturbed. Can your wife confirm this? The officer turned to Kat. Yes, Kat replied. The officer looked at Sue. Sue, what about you? I'm his girlfriend. And yes, he's been here since a little after 6, Sue replied. And you? The senior officer turned to the 3rd woman in my kitchen. Sharon Fielding, she answered shortly. Even the senior officer could not hide her surprise. Sharon Fielding, as in Mrs. Sharon Fielding. Soon to be Miss Sharon Fielding, soon to be divorced. And yes, Tom was with us all evening. The senior officer turned to me again. So, Tom, is there anyone who is not your wife or one of your friends who can confirm your alibi? I'm not his friend, Sharon interjected haughtily. The officer ignored her. We ordered takeout. She was delivered between 18:30 and 19 o'clock. It cost a little over $20, so I gave the guy 50 and told him to keep the change. I think he will remember me. I smiled, and the officers looked at me with irritation. Tipping generously will really help ensure that you are remembered, the senior officer replied, clearly irritated by my performance. Okay, thank you for your cooperation. Sarcasm was clearly present in her voice. I walked them to the door, and as they left, I said, "See you next time." I shouldn't have said that they were just doing their job. They didn't even turn around, but I heard the junior officer say, "If I were fielding, I'd leave town." "Yes," replied the senior officer. When I returned, Sharon said, "I have to go. Allison is looking after my beautiful daughter, Emily, and she will be worried where I am. You know, Emily tells everyone at school that Chelsea is her big sister." Sharon kissed Sue and Kat goodbye and said to me, "See you at work tomorrow, boss. Don't forget we need to discuss the Waterford House project." Sharon was almost out the door when Kat called out to her, "Sharon, next time, I think we should add apple pie to our coffee." Sharon blushed but smiled as she walked away. Sue also started to get ready. "I need to go too. It's time to go back to my new apartment." While Sue was saying goodbye to Kat and kissing her, I casually asked the question, "Have you checked your emails this evening?" They looked at each other and ran to Kat's computer. Soon they returned, joyfully shouting, "We are going to New York! We're going to New York!" Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.